This is Atomic Shinobi and today I'm going to narrate what if Naruto disappeared during 3 years training trip and joined a secret organization. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
The land of fire's wilderness. Jiraiya yawned as she awoke. After 3 years away, he was glad to be back in Konoha, where he and Naruto were only a day's drive. He changed out of his sleeping bag and put on his toad sage clothes as usual. He got out of his tent and turned to face Naruto's tent, but there was nothing there but pressed grass. Jiraiya began searching wildly for the blonde knucklehead but was unable to locate him or his belongings. Then he saw it. A letter that had been kunai affixed to his tent pole. He approached the letter, took the kunai from the wood, and began reading it. Hello, Ba. Chan and Arrow. Sensei. I'm gone, as you've already noticed. Please don't come looking for me. I had an incident, and until I get it under control, I might not be safe in Konoha. I'm not sure when I'll be back, but I'll be back. I swear. The two seals beneath this layer belong to Hinata. Chan and Sakura. Chan, not to you. Sakura's is on the right, and Hinata's is on the left. They only need to apply their chakra and blood to the seal for it to release. Therefore, kindly ensure that they receive them and refrain from reading them. I'll be seeing you in a year or so. Naruto, yours. P.S. If Ba. Chan wants to finish the paperwork more quickly, tell her to make shadow clones because they can remember things. Jiraiya was taken aback to discover that Naruto had experienced an unexpected event. What on earth ought I to do? Jiraiya thought. I suppose the best course of action is to return to Tsunade as soon as possible and see what she wants to do. He began packing up the tent after converting his thoughts into action. After finishing that, he made his way toward the north gate of Konoha's. The north gate of Konoha's north gate was being guarded by Mizuki, a Chunin with hair in front of his eyes, and Katetsu Hagane, his partner and best friend, who was wearing a bandage over his nose. They were engaged in a card game. Katetsu cheered. Ha, I win again, Azumo. Azumo put his cards on the table and said, damn, I'm sure you cheat. Jiraiya landed in front of their booth just as they were ready to deal another hand. Izumi looked about the toad sage and said, hey Master Jiraiya, where's Naruto? Jiraiya quickly signed in and ran down Konoha's main street, directly to the Hokage Tower, saying, sorry, I can't tell you. I have to see the Godem. See y'all later. The office of the Hokages alongside the paperwork. Tsunade had a bottle of sake, and she was battling paperwork, the worst and most formidable foe of any cage. She wouldn't be able to fight the paperwork without it. As she placed the Hokage seal on yet another document and took a swig of sake, Tsunade groaned. It's times like this I hate Naruto and Jiraiya for talking me into taking this job. Shizune suddenly rushed through the door. Lady Tsunade, Lady Tsunade. What is it this time, Shizune? With a distressed expression on her face, she answered, Lady Tsunade. Lord Jiraiya has returned but Naruto has disappeared. Tsunade's face fell into concern as soon as she heard those 3 words. Tell him to get his perverted ass in here now. Shizune turned around and said, yes, Lady Tsunade. She told Jiraiya, you better get in there. He entered the office and narrowly avoided Tsunade's fist. With his hand in front of him, Jiraiya said, hold on there, Tsunade. Read this. He went on, passing her the letter. After she finished reading the letter, she exclaimed, Anbu. Suddenly, 2 Anbu a Euro, one wearing a beat mask and the other a sparrow mask a Euro, appeared. Once the order was given, Hinata Hyuga and Sakura Haruno vanished once more. Get me Hinata Hyuga and Sakura Haruno here now. Tell them I have something for them. Please, Naruto, be okay. The Hyuga compound. Sitting in the Hyuga compound's flower garden, Hinata thought, I have to tell Naruto-kun how I feel, and soon, her father will start finding me a suitor. This was just one of many thoughts running through the Hyuga princess's mind after she was informed that she needed a suitor by the time she turned 17. She was startled when the bear masked Anbu suddenly materialized beside her. Who are you? That is not important, Hinata-san. The Hokage has demanded your presence in her office immediately. Of course, thank you for the message, but it is okay. Do you know the nature of this meetings? The bear-masked Anbu said, I'm afraid not. I was only tasked with informing you. The mystery man vanished in an instant. As she stood up and made her way from the flower garden to the compound's front gate, she pondered, I wonder what Hokage Sama would like to talk to me about. I am going to the Hokage's office, if my father asks, she told the 2 gate guards of Hyuga. At the same time, they said, of course Lady Hinata. Hinata was somewhat offended by the title because she detested it, but she persisted and went on to the Hokage Tower. In the meantime, the apartment of Sakura and Ino. Sakura was grinning and Kakashi was grinning as she gazed at the soul image of Team 7, which showed Naruto and Sasuke growling. I am not alone. Sasuke-kun and Naruto were still here, and those were better times. I hope they both return so we can work together once more, she thought, grinning piteously. She was startled when the sparrow wearing Anbu suddenly materialized next to her. Sakura-san. Lady Hokage has demanded your presence in her office now. Why does sensei want to see me? While he vanished, he said, I do not know. My only task was to inform you of what she has told me. As she got up and put the photo of her, Shikamaru, Shoji, and Asuma on the cabinet next to Ino's, she thought to herself, those guys sure are creepy. She then proceeded to the door, unlocked it, stepped outside, and locked it once more. Then, humming haphazardly, she continued down the street to the Hokage Tower. The Tsunade's office. She had sent the two Anbu to alert Sakura and Hinata a few minutes prior. She was still upset about Naruto's departure. She had the bottle of sake beside her as she sat on the couch in her office, following Naruto's advice to create shadow clones to complete the paperwork. At that moment, someone knocked on the door. She commanded, come in. The door opened in response, and the two young women she had asked entered the office. She stood up, walked to her seat, dispelled the clone, and sat down, saying to the two, you two are here. She looked out the window. Jiraiya, they're here, so get in here. After that, Jiraiya climbed through the window and stood beside Tsunade. He said, hello girls. The girls' eyes shifted from the Toad Sage to the rest of the office, back to Tsunade, and then to each other. Hinata said, Hokage. Sama, where is Naruto-kun? Sakura added, yeah, where is Naruto? Tsunade remarked, well, that is the reason you are here. Sakura and Hinata's expressions fell as they prepared for the worst. Their faces brightened slightly when they heard the words, no, he isn't dead. Tsunade then took the letter out of a drawer and said, he has gone off on his own for the foreseeable future. He left this letter. There is a seal for each of you at the base of the letter. Hinata, yours is the one of the left and Sakura the one on the right. Just put blood on the palm of your hand and place it on the seal and push some chakra in it, she clarified. Hinata took the lead. She put her hand on her seal and pushed some chakra into it after nicking her thumb on her canine tooth and spreading the blood on her opposite palm. Abruptly, a puff of smoke appeared, and Hinata held a scroll. Sakura then held the scroll in her hand and did the same thing again. Then Hinata opened her scroll and began to read it. Greetings, Hinata. Chan, I apologize for not being able to speak with you for a while. I'll just write it for the time being. First of all, I concealed the entire accusation of my stupidity from everyone in order to protect myself. Second, I never loved Sakura, instead, I loved you. Since I rescued you from those bullies when we first met, I have loved you. I'll discuss it further with you when I return. Lastly, your father and the fourth Hokage have a written agreement that states that you will marry his firstborn son, me. However, the 9 Tails attacked the village prior to the agreement being finalized with my name. This letter has a seal underneath it that contains a veil of my blood. Since your father is required by law to keep them, go to him and ask to see the agreement. Put my blood where the groom's name should be when you receive it. If you follow my instructions, it will move and spell out my name in the space, confirming that I am his son and that we have been engaged since before we were even born. You have complete control over it. Please know that I love you and will see you soon. I will discuss this topic further when I return to Konoha. I make promises, and as you are aware, I never break them because that is my nindo. Naruto is your fox. Hinata was struggling to maintain consciousness. He truly does love me, Euro. He loves me. The first thing she knew she needed to do was obtain the agreement to make Naruto her fiancé copyright, but she didn't want to offend the Hokage and Master Jiraiya, so she screamed in her head. Sakura was reading her letter while Hinata was reading hers. Greetings, Sakura. Chan, although I've never forgotten my pledge to you to bring Sasuke back, I must tell you something. We had him leave. After the old man passed away, Sasuke and I decided that Orochimaru wouldn't simply abandon Konoha, so we sent Sasuke to train under him in order to gain more strength and to learn what he is planning and when. I apologize for misleading you, but it was necessary. Every few months, I will meet with him to discuss his progress and Orochimaru's plans. The next time we have to meet, I'll bring you along to see him when I get back. Please continue to be strong and grow stronger so that you can. Although I know I asked you out, I felt it was safe to give the impression that I was in love with you because I didn't want the person I truly loved to be hurt by my relationship with you, and I knew you wouldn't go out with me. I apologize for taking advantage of you, but I must keep her safe. Thus, I'll see you when I get back. Naruto. Although she was a little upset with the blonde for what he had done, she could understand why, and if he had taken her to see Sasuke when he got back, she would have forgiven him. She chose to speak with the girls again after noticing that they had both finished reading their letter. I hope the letter were able to provide some comfort for you. Naruto asked me in his letter to me not to ask what he wrote to you, so I'll respect that. You may go now and continue with your day. Oh, and Sakura training will be on tomorrow because of my new signing method. After that, the girls left the office and went outside. Sakura turned to her friend on the way. It looks like you got the man of your dreams, Hinata. Hinata sprang to her feet and turned to Sakura. I don't know what you mean, Sakura-chan. He told me in his letter about only asking me out to protect the girl he loved and the only girl that I know that Naruto talks to and knows is you. So I guessed you were the girl. Oh. She turned and waved to the dark-haired girl who was making her way to the Hyuga compound, saying, I'm happy for you, Hinata. I've got to go, I'll see you later. Hyuga compound, research by Hiyashi. Hinata knew her father was in his study, so she knocked on the door. A man's voice from inside the room said, come in. Then Hinata slid the door open and entered, kneeling on a cushion across from Hiyashi's table. Good afternoon, father. I have a request for you. What is this proposal, Hinata? It has come to my attention that a betrothal agreement was made for me before I was born and I was to the 4th Hokage's son. I would like to see it, please. At this request, Hiyashi's eyes widened a little. Why would you like to see the agreement? Just to see it. I am part of the agreement, so I have the right, so please, father. Hiyashi got up from the cushion in response, went to the bookshelf, and took out a box. He dropped back to his knees and set the box on the table. Then he opened the box and a scroll came out. The box was placed on the floor beside him, and the scroll was placed on the table beside it. Then he unfolded the parchment. It contained the agreement that Hinata would wed Kushina's and Minato's eldest son. She questioned, who is Kushina? Kushina Namikaze was the wife of Minato and your mother.in.law if their son was born. But he died with them on the night of the 9 Tails attack. Minato was a good friend of mine and Kushina a good friend of your mother. Oh, okay. She then took the letter from Naruto and proceeded to unlock the seal on it by following the same procedure as on the other letter. She had a veil of blood in her hand. Hinata, whose blood is that? And why do you have it? As she poured the blood on the area where the groom's name should be, she remarked, this is the blood of the son of Minato and Kushina. I believe he didn't die that night and had his last name changed. And the reason, I think that is obvious. The blood began to move and form a name after a few seconds. The name the blood had spelled caused Hiyashi's eyes to widen even more. This meant something to him. On the other hand, Hinata was happier than she had ever been in her life. She thought, please, don't let this be a dream. Naruto Namikaze was the name in the space, the office of the Hokage 1 year later. While her shadow clones completed her paperwork, Tsunade sat on her couch. She had just returned from Sakura's training. Her thoughts kept wandering until she noticed a puff of smoke in the middle of her office. Man, this village is so boring without that blonde-haired idiot to run his mouth, she thought. When the smoke cleared and a 3-tailed golden white fox the size of a Kumaru sat in the center of the office, she became confused. She had been prepared to fight the intruder and her shadow clone had dispersed from the shock. Tsunade glared at the kitsune, growling, what are you doing in here? The kitsune looked in Tsunade's direction. I am a messenger of my master. You are Tsunade Senju, Godem Hokage. Yes? The fox responded. Yes, that is me, but who are you? I am you, a kitsune summons. What, I thought the kitsune summons didn't have a summoner. As she vanished in another puff of smoke, leaving a curious Tsunade behind, you said, we didn't, but this person is special. Anyway, my master has requested to meet you, the Toad Sage Jiraiya, Lady Shizune, the rest of the Konoha 12, and their senseis in a clearing 10 miles north of Konoha in 1 hour. Please don't be late. Who is the kitsune summoning contract's owner and master? She pondered. Anbu. All 4 of her personal guards entered the room as soon as she uttered the name. She gave the order, and after she was done, they vanished to go find the people they were assigned to. I would like you to get me Jiraiya, the remainder of the Konoha 12, and the senseis and tell them to meet me at the North Gate in 30 minutes and tell Kakashi to be there on time or those books are getting burned and banned. She yelled, Shizune, out the door. The woman in question entered the room. She asked, yes, Lady Tsunade? As Tsunade made the tiger sign and a shadow clone of herself puffed into existence beside her, she responded, you and I are going to meet someone. We are going now. Then Shizune followed Tsunade as she left the office. 30 minutes later, Konoha North Gate. Just outside the North Gate stood Tsunade, Shizune, Jiraiya, the other members of the Konoha 12, and their senseis. Jiraiya questioned, Tsunade, why did you call all of us here and so fast? Every adult's eyes widened as she said, I got a guest in my office half an hour ago. A three-tailed kitsune summon. A what? Three-tailed kitsune summons. She appeared to give me a message that her master and owner of the summons wants to meet everyone here in a clearing 10 miles north of Konoha in 30 minutes from now, she responded. So we are going to meet this mystery person? Yes. Are you sure? Yes. He made the decision to comply and simply protect her after realizing that he couldn't make her change her mind. Okay. They nodded in agreement, and departed for the clearing with Kiba and Orochimaru at the front and Hinata and Neji at the back, keeping watch in case of an ambush. Now that is sorted, I want Kiba and Orochimaru at the front just in case and Hinata and Neji at the back keeping an eye out in case of an ambush. Getting rid of they reached the clearing where the person wanted to meet after 25 minutes of traveling and hopping from branch to branch. They knew because Yu was sitting in the center of the clearing. Yu gazed at them as they touched down in the clearing. As Yu lay down and watched the group, she said, Hello, thank you for meeting my master. He will be here momentarily. I shall stay till then. The group had been waiting for the mystery man for a few minutes, and they were growing irritated. Where the hell is the arrogant bastard? He told us not to be late and he is the one who is late, Kiba yelled. The group suddenly heard a low growl, and they all turned to see Yu growling and snarling at Kiba. What did you say about my master? I said he is an arrogant bastard for tell us not to be late and he is. He calmed down after Hinata said, Kiba-kun, he isn't late, there are a few minutes until an hour. So please calm down. Then she looked at Yu. I am sorry for my teammate, but how long will your master be? Yu bowed her head and then raised it again, saying, It is okay. She turned and ran to a figure wearing a green camouflage cloak and hood that was up to hide his face. An oak leaf connected the cloak around him, and underneath the cloak was a black jacket that was zipped up, dark gray trousers, and black sandals. As for my master, he has just got here. Then she leapt up to the figure, whose hand, covered in fingerless gloves, emerged from his cloak to caress the kitsune. Tsunade questioned the figure, so I'm guessing you are the master of this kitsune? It was a voice that shocked everyone in the group as the figure said, Well, I guess I am Ba-chan. After raising his head from Yu to the group, the figure lowered his hood to reveal a face they hadn't seen in a year. A face with ocean blue eyes, spiky blonde hair, and 3 whisker marks on each cheek. He grinned and remarked, Long time no see. When Hinata saw the blonde ninja, she felt an unidentified surge of courage. As the boy ran and tackled her, she yelled, Naruto-kun. The boy was laughing as she fell. He said, It's good to see you as well, Hinata-chan. He then leaned in close to whisper in her ear. He muttered, So what is the nature of our relationship now? She buried her head deeper into his chest and blushed intensely as a result. He couldn't make out what she said, but it was in his chest. What was that, Hinata-chan? She looked up and whispered low enough Naruto could hear, We are engaged. He reached into his pocket, took out a ring with 3 purple zircons, and placed it on Hinata's left ring finger, saying, Great. Well, I think I better give you this then. Hinata Hyuga, will you marry me? As she gave him a closer hug, she said, Yes, yes, yes. Tsunade coughed at the two, ahem. They both looked at her and got to their feet, but Hinata covered her left hand to conceal the ring for the time being. She questioned the other blonde. Okay Naruto, could you please explain where the hell you have been for the past year? Okay, so it started with something happening to me the night before I left. My eyes were burning and Kurama was telling me because for him being sealing inside me since I was newborn I gained a special something, but I will tell you about that after this. He then glanced at Jiraiya. Arrow. Sensei, you may know what the cloak means, but he's another clue, the cloak to meld and the bow to fight. Jiraiya became aware of this quote. Tsunade glanced at her fellow Sennin as Naruto nodded in response to her question. No way. You're part of their group? She asked, a little irate. What is that supposed to mean, Jiraiya? To the surprise of the group, he said, Tsunade, I think I have to retire as Konoha's spy master. What? Naruto is part of a group known as the Ranger Corps. I think you know who they are. They have the best spy system in the world. They can get into anywhere. Ranger Corps. I thought they were a myth. Naruto cut in. No, they're very real. Jiraiya inquired, how did you get in? Family. Naruto's response left everyone perplexed. Tsunade tragically told them, family, Naruto, your parent and their families are dead. Wrong, one member defiantly exists and maybe 2 more, but I have to confirm that soon. Kakashi remarked, but Naruto, you don't know who your parents are. Wrong again. Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Kakashi all recoiled a little at this response. My father is Minato Namikaze and my mother is Kushina Namikaze, or as she was known before she was married, Kushina Uzumaki. Jiraiya lowered her head and said, so you know. Yeah, they told me as they put some of their chakra in the seal so I would see them. Anyway, we can discuss this later. Who was the family member who got you into the Ranger Corps? Jiraiya responded. My mother twin sister, Lilia Uzumaki. After the name was uttered, a shorter, female figure dressed similarly to Naruto appeared. She removed her hood to reveal a face that was an exact replica of Kushina's. Wow! Exclaimed Tsunade. I always thought Kushina was an only child. No, I joined the Ranger Corps when I was 11. I was picked by my master. To get back on track, Naruto said, anyway, back to what happened to me. I have learned of my bloodline. Bloodline? I thought there wasn't an Uzumaki bloodline, replied Tsunade. Naruto held out his hand as a blue bow materialized out of chakra, saying, yes, there is. It is chakra manifestation. The woman of the Uzumaki can create chakra chains, whereas the Melissa Euro create weapons. The group gazed in awe at Naruto. So this is what happened with Kurama, you learned your bloodline? Tsunade inquired. No, I learned this at the Ranger Corps, that's to Aunt Lilia. Naruto replied. What happened was this. He briefly closed his eye, but there were red eyes with slits where his ocean blue eye had been. This is my second bloodline, I call it the Kitsugan. As Jiraiya put it, wow, what do these eyes do? Seals. Any seal I have learned I memorize, and all I have to is say the name and it will appear on the palm of my hand. Then I can place it on anything. Watch. Explosion seal. He said while laying his hand on the ground. The seal was on the floor a second after he took his hand off of it. Everyone was in awe of what he accomplished. Okay, so now to the final part. Tsunade.san and Jiraiya.san, could you come here please? Naruto responded. As she and Jiraiya moved forward, Tsunade reasoned that something must be significant because they were addressing us by name. They turned around and faced the group after being told to do so. Aunt, look, just as I thought. I have to do this. Do what, Naruto? Inquired Tsunade. Naruto put both of their heads in his hands and said, I'm sorry. As Tsunade and Jiraiya fell to the ground, he yelled, destroy. Looking down at the two, Naruto said, I'm sorry. Getting rid of, with the exception of Naruto, Hinata, and Lilia prepared their weapons and pointed them at Naruto as soon as Tsunade and Jiraiya's bodies hit the ground. Yu went low to the ground and growled at the shinobi in response to the weapons. Sakura, prepared to punch him if he gave her the wrong response, yelled, Naruto, what the hell do you think you are doing? Naruto waved his hands and said, whoa, whoa. Hold up, they're only unconscious. I'll explain when they come to, as I can't be bothered explaining the same thing twice and you don't have a right to know before they do. After that, the ninja dropped their weapons but remained vigilant. The two senin regained consciousness after a few minutes. They both got to their feet, moaning and massaging their heads. They surveyed the area. Tsunade inquired, what happened? Naruto placed a hand on the back of both of your heads and said, destroy, and you both collapsed. Shizune clarified. Tsunade turned to face Naruto, who was sitting and caressing Yu, and said, okay. Naruto, what did you do and why? Naruto got to his feet and approached the pair. I did what I did because it was better for you and Ero. Sensei. Both you and he had a memory seal placed on you. It blocked out some serious memories. Bah. Chan, think but to the time just before you met Dan and Ero. Sensei, think back to just before you got sent on your spy network mission for the first time. They both exchanged perplexed glances. Then they started to recall what Naruto had said. Their responses differed. Tsunade's expression was a mix of happiness and despair, while Jiraiya's was joyful. Tsunade questioned, what is the meaning of this, Naruto? Everyone in attendance was shocked to hear this news, with the exception of Lilia. As I said, you both had a memory seal placed on you. That seal blocked out memories of you two being together. You two were together for about 2 years. What? Cried Tsunade. I wouldn't go out with that pervert. Deadpanned, Jiraiya said, thanks Tsunade. Naruto remarked, oh, that's not the most important news. He met Tsunade's eyes directly. Everyone who was shocked to hear this news had to pick their jaws up off the ground. You were pregnant. With considerable effort, Tsunade uttered, I was pre-Euro pregnant? Yes. But Jiraiya. Sensei didn't know, as the person who placed the seal on you had found out before you could tell him, and he was sent on the mission with the memory seal already on. You hid the pregnancy from everyone so no one knew. You wanted Jiraiya to be the first to know, but the mission he was sent on continued and didn't return in time, and you gave birth to a boy, alone. Then once he was born, this person placed the seal on you and the child was taken to an orphanage, Naruto stated with a sad face. At this point, Tsunade and Jiraiya were crying because they had discovered they had a child they were unaware of. With tears in her eyes, Tsunade questioned, Budayuro, but who is he? Who is my boy? When Jiraiya noticed this, she went to her and supported her. Both Jiraiya and Tsunade's faces fell when they heard this news. Think about it. It is really simple. Who was the only blonde child in the village after that time? Who wasn't in the Yamanaka clan? Tsunade finally broke down in tears and slapped Jiraiya's chest with different strength than usual. No, please, no, he died before I found out. No, she exclaimed. I wish you knew before he died. Naruto tried to sound strong as he said, I know exactly how you were feeling. During her angry and depressed outburst, Tsunade asked, how could you know? Without understanding what she had said or who she had said it to. Because he was my father, Oba-san. Naruto exclaimed, his head lowered and a single tear dripping from his eye. When Tsunade realized that Naruto was her grandson if Minato was her son, she paused and stared at the blonde in disbelief. Tsunade asked, keeping her gaze fixed on the blonde teenager, Jiraiya, please let me go. When Jiraiya saw this, she complied and was released. Now that she was free of Jiraiya's embrace, she approached Naruto, put her arms around him, and gave him a cheek kiss. I'm sorry. Both me and Jiraiya have failed you as grandparents up until this point, but not anymore. Everyone will know you are Naruto Uzumaki. Namikaze, son of Minato Namikaze, the Yellow Flash, and Kushina Uzumaki, the Red Death, grandson of Tsunade Senju, the Slug Princess, and Jiraiya, the Toad Sage, she said with affection. Jiraiya approached and put a hand on Tsunade's shoulder, saying, to right, kid. And nephew to Lilia Uzumaki, second in command of the Ranger Nin Corp. Lilia continued. Naruto addressed his grandparents, saying, I only have one thing to ask of both of you. Jiraiya and Tsunade said, anything. Give you two another shot. I would prefer to have my grandparent together, please just try. Asked Naruto. Jiraiya and Tsunade exchanged glances. Tsunade said, okay, I'll give the perv a chance. Naruto looked up and said, thank you. He left Tsunade's embrace and stood 10 feet away from them, adding, I have one last surprise for you in OG.san. Tsunade said, what is it, Naruto? I was wondering if, now that you know I'm a quarter senju, could I have the wood release scrolls? Naruto replied. Tsunade questioned, you have got wood release, Naruto? With his palm facing forward, Naruto grew a tree sapling in his hand and said, yeah, because of the Kitsugan I have all 5 element releases, which means I can access wood release because of the senju blood, but I can only do the basics. I can't make any jutsu as I don't know the existing ones. Everyone in the room exclaimed, wow. Yes, of course, Naruto. Just wait until I get them from the Hokage mansion. Of course, that's all I have to tell everyone, so can we go home now? Tsunade looked at her grandson's aunt and said, yes, and Lilia, you are welcome to Konoha. Thank you, Hokage. Sama, I would like to guard Naruto. Naruto added, you don't have to, you know. Oh yes, I do. Naruto jumped toward Konoha and said, okay, let's just go. Still impatient, I see. Tsunade remarked. Yeah, he changed a lot, but still some traits come to the surface from time to time. Lilia replied. After Naruto, everyone took off. Konoha the group came to a halt before the Hokage mansion. Okay, I'm going to call a meeting with the council tomorrow for you, Naruto. Then after I will reveal to the village who you really are, Naruto. Tsunade responded. Only Naruto, Lilia, Tsunade, and Shizune remained after all the shinobi nodded and departed. Naruto inquired, Oba-san, is my apartment still okay? Oh, just go to the Uzumaki compound. It's rightfully yours anyway. The gate is blood sealed, so just unlock the seal with your blood and you can explore to your heart's content. Tsunade replied. Then Naruto approached Tsunade and planted a kiss on her cheek, saying, thanks a lot, Oba-san. He and Lilia departed, and he continued, I love you, see y'all. As Tsunade and Shizune entered the mansion, she declared, I love you to Naruto. The Hokage Tower. The day after his return, Naruto was sitting in the Hokage's office waiting area. He was told to report to the Hokage's office by an Anbu who showed up at his door early this morning. Shizune said as she left the office, Naruto, Lady Tsunade will see you now. Naruto got up, went to the door, and rapped on it. He heard someone on the other side of the door say, come in, Naruto. Both of his grandparents were waiting for him when he entered the office. Jiraiya was standing to the right and behind Tsunade, who was seated at her desk. Entering the office, he sat down at one of the chairs across from Tsunade's desk. So Oba-chan, OG.san, what did you want to see me for? I thought that I only had to attend the meeting and announcement this afternoon, Naruto responded. That's true, Naruto, but we will need more evidence than just our words, so we will have to do a blood test on me, you, Minato and Jiraiya, replied Tsunade. How can you get OTOU? Sans blood? As the young blonde pulled up his sleeve, Tsunade pulled out a syringe, walked over to him, and injected the needle into his arm to draw the necessary amount of blood. Every Hokage has to have a blood sample taken before they become Hokage. So all I have to do is get your blood, as I already have Jiraiya's. Okay then, is that all you need? Yes, for now. The council meeting will start at 1:30 this afternoon, so I will need you, your Aunt Lilia and Hinata to be here. That's fine. I'll go and tell her now, he replied. After that, he got up and moved toward the door. He was about to reach for the door. Tsunade remarked, oh, one more thing, Naruto. I will need you to write a field report of your training trip with Jiraiya and what happened when you were at the Ranger Corps. Sorry, Oba-chan. I wish I could be. I can't reveal anything I trained or did at the Ranger Corps. They're very secretive about their activities. Jiraiya inquired, can you write about anything? No, sorry, Oto.san. I can write about what happened before the Ranger Corps, but nothing during it. That's the best I can do. Okay, Naruto, I won't ask you to betray them. Just write what you're allowed, have it done by the meeting. Naruto told Hinata she needed to be at the meeting, so he left the office and went to the Hyuga compound via the Hokage Tower. Will do. See ya then. Compound Hyuga, front gate. Naruto had just arrived at the front gate of the Hyuga compound. The gate was guarded by 2 members of the Hyuga branch family. Naruto addressed the guards, saying, hello, I'm here to see Hinata. The 2 guards gave Naruto a somewhat contemptuous glance. One person questioned, why do you need to see Hinata, Sama? Because I have a message from the Hokage, that's why. The second person said, all right, you can enter. Naruto passed the 2 and proceeded to the main house through the expansive compound. When he asked a passing Hyuga where Hinata was after entering the house, he was directed to the dojo. After expressing gratitude to the Hyuga, Naruto headed for the dojo. Her father and grandfather watched as Hinata sparred with her younger sister, Hanabi. Hiyashi was pleased for his oldest daughter and couldn't help but notice the ring on Hinata's finger. Strangely, Hanabi and her grandfather had failed to notice. Since learning that she was engaged to Naruto, Hinata's abilities have significantly improved over the past 12 months. She had just pushed her left arm forward to strike Hanabi's upper left arm, causing the chakra to be disrupted and rendering the arm limp while also pushing Hanabi to the ground. Hiyashi told his daughters, enough. Hinata is the victor, now bow. The chakra returned to her arm, allowing her to move in it once more, and Hanabi stood up. After bowing to one another, the 2 turned to face their grandfather and father. Hinata, I am very proud of the progress you have made over this last year. Hiyashi responded. Hiyashi went on. The incentive you have given Musta Euro. Until a blonde shinobi stood in front of the dojo door as it opened. Naruto said, oh sorry, Hyuga. Sama. With his entrance, I need to talk to Hinata. What is it in conjunction with? Inquired the elder of the Hyuga. It concerns the council meeting that will take place this afternoon, replied Naruto. Hiyashi understood what he was discussing. Hiyashi turned to Hinata and said, of course. Hinata, you are excused. After bowing to the 2 elderly men, Hinata and Naruto left through the door. Hanabi questioned, was that an engagement ring on Hinata's finger? Hiyashi smiled and said, yes, yes it is. She has finally chosen a suitor. Who? You will find out in due course, Hanabi. The room of Hinata holding the door open for the blonde, Hinata said, just in here, Naruto-kun. Naruto grinned as he entered and took a seat on her bed, saying, why thank you, Hina-chan. Hinata trailed behind and took a seat beside him. He extended his hand to grasp hers. Hinata turned 10 shades red as a result. Sa Naruto. K.kun. What is I.it you needed T.to talk about? Replied Hinata. Well, there are 2 things, one for the Oba-chan and the other for me. Which do you want first? The news from Hokage. Sama, please. Okay, she wants you to accompany me to the council meeting and the announcement, as she is going to announce our engagement along with my heritage. Oh, okay, I will be there. When is it? 1:30. Okay, so what is the other news? Naruto's response, well, it's a request, not news, left Hinata looking perplexed. What's the request? Do you want to go out on a date tomorrow night? Hinata felt her mind exploding. A date, date, tomorrow night. She said, "Yes, of course I would love to Naruto." This caused him to fall back on the bed, and she embraced him. Naruto laughed and returned the embrace, saying, "Ha, ha. That's great." For a few minutes, they remained in that position. He gave her a pat in return. Okay, Hinata. As much I love hugging you and being on your bed. I have to write the field report of my training trip before the council meeting." Hinata immediately let go. She looked down and away from him, blushing, and said, "Sorry, Naruto-kun." "Hinata, there is nothing to be sorry about, you are my fiancé copyrighty after all, so you do have the right to hug me." He leaned in next to her ear and remarked, "Kami, she is so cute when she blushes." He muttered, among other things. Hinata fainted as a result. As he caught her and placed her on the bed, he laughed. He kissed her forehead and said, "Sorry Hinata." He then went off to write the report. Room for council meetings. So Tsunade. What is the meaning of this surprise council meeting? Danzo responded. He sat waiting for Tsunade to begin the meeting, along with the other 2 village elders and all of the clan heads. Tsunade told the council as a whole, "We are here to discuss 3 things. First is the return of Naruto Uzumaki, second is his heritage, and third is his future." Homura Mitokado inquired, "What Naruto Uzumaki is back in the village?" "Yes, he is. Well, he should be arrested for abandoning his village. Especially with what he is, we need him in case some other village attacks," stated Kaharu Utatane. Actually no, he shouldn't, as he disappeared for 2 reasons. First, he left as something happened to him that had something to do with the Kyuubi, so he got as far away from the village as possible to protect it, just in case. And second, he found a family member. Tsunade stated the truthfully. Shikaku Nara inquired, "What happened to Naruto?" with a mix of curiosity and worry. Tsunade went to the door and opened it, asking, "Why doesn't he just show you?" She said to the person or people on the other side of the door, "You can come in now." Then she and Naruto and Hinata returned to the room. Naruto and Hinata stood next to Tsunade as she made her way back to her position in front of the other council members. She looked over at Naruto. "Okay Naruto, show them the reason you left." After giving this request a nod, Naruto closed his eyes. After closing them for a few seconds, he opened them again to gaze at the council members with his Kitsugan eyes. Except for Hinata and Tsunade, everyone in the room was taken aback by these eyes. Danzo was the best at hiding his surprise. As he continued to describe the Kitsugan, he raised his palm to the council and caused the explosion seal to appear on it. "This is why I disappeared. This dojutsu is called the Kitsugan and is one of my Kage Genki." Naruto went on, "The second reason I left also ties to my second Kage Genki," he yelled, "Aunt Lilia," into the ceiling. At that moment, Lilia emerged in a mixed mirage. When she was completely formed, she removed her hood. The resemblance between Lilia and Kushina stunned the council once more. "By the look on all your faces I see you realize I was related to Kushina Uzumaki. I am her twin sister, Lilia Uzumaki. As my aunt Lilia just said, she is Kushina Uzumaki's sister, or should I say my San's sister," Naruto said. As Naruto explained his and the Uzumaki Kage Genki, he materialized a chakra bow in his hand and said, "So as I know of my Uzumaki heritage, I also know of its Kage Genki. So we have been told about the return of Naruto Uzumaki and his heritage, so what is the news about his future?" Danzo replied. "Actually Danzo, there is something else to do with Naruto's heritage we had to discuss," Tsunade responded. "And what is that?" As each council member picked up and read the paper, Tsunade said, "Read the paper that is on each of your desks." "What does a DNA test have to do with anything?" "Well, the top one is Naruto's and the one below it is Minato Namikaze's. As you can see, that is proves Naruto is his son. Which the elders knew about," Tsunade clarified. "Okay, but there are 2 other and they say that they are a similar match to both Naruto and Minato, so what do these DNA samples belong to?" Inochi Yamanaka inquired. She took a moment to process the information before saying, "I'm glad you asked that. Those 2 belong to myself and Jiraiya." The council members were all taken aback for the 3rd time. "Yes, me and Jiraiya are Minato parents, which also makes us Naruto's grandparents. But how you 2 were never together and you were never pregnant?" Tsunade. Homura pondered. Tsunade continued by sharing the details and memories Naruto had shared with her. "The only thing me and Jiraiya don't know is who did it. Only Naruto knows." Tsunade went on. "Yeah, I will tell you and Oto-san later in private. These people have no right to know," Naruto replied. "Who do you think you are talking to, boy? We are the village council, we have a right to know." Homura laughed. Then whimpered at the sudden intent to kill that entered the room. "I would highly advise you not to talk about my grandson like that." Tsunade sighed. Also, you don't have any right as scenes as how Naruto is my grandson. He is part of the Senju clan, so it falls under clan law and the council don't have any say in the matter. Oh, that reminds me. Oba-chan, I would like to change my last name to Uzumaki. Senju. But I would like to stay in the Uzumaki compound. But rename it the Uzumaki Senju compound. Naruto asked for it. According to Tsunade, of course, it will be official after the announcement. Thanks. Hokage. Sama, I would like to propose that scenes as how Naruto is the last Uzumaki Senju we enforce the CRA. Kaharu made the suggestion. Yes, she is right. Homura and Danzo concurred. Naruto uttered the words, "No way in hell." When Naruto said this, Hiyashi, who was equally incensed that his daughter would have several wives, became a little more composed. I'm already engaged and I am not betraying her. Danzo countered, you will be a boy and she will be one of your wives. Who is your fiancé copyrightee anyway? Naruto reached for Hinata's hand and grasped it, saying, Hinata Hyuga. Danzo remarked, perfect, your children will be powerful. Inochi's face turned irritated as he went on. I also think Ino Yamanaka and Sakura Haruno will be good wives as well. So you will be married to these three and have one child by each within a year. Danzo said. After saying this, Hinata tightened her hold on Naruto's hand and ducked behind him. Lilia said, actually no he won't. Oh, please, tell us how he won't, Kaharu remarked mockingly. Well, there are two reasons. One, there is an Uzumaki law stating that a man can only have one wife and vice versa. Lilia began. Kaharu opened his mouth to reply, but Lilia began again. And because the Uzumaki clan didn't originate in Konohagakure, rather in Uzushiogakure, Konoha's laws can't overrule an Uzumaki clan law. Since Lilia was correct, Kaharu was unable to respond. The knowledge that her grandson and Hinata could marry in peace as peaceful as a shinobi couple can be made Tsunade smile. And to the final topic. Naruto's future. As he said, he will be living in the Uzumaki Senju compound. He will have a seat on the council when turns 18, and until then Lilia will take the seat. He will have the inheritance of Kushina and Minato, but also the inheritance of the Senju clan and Jiraiya, making him the richest person and clan in Fire Country. One final thing before you conclude, Oba-chan. I would like to be able to leave the village at any time for my other business, Naruto asked. Realizing his meaning, Tsunade answered, of course, as long as this business helps Konoha. It will. Okay, then that concludes this council meeting. Oh, one more thing, all clan heads, there is an announcement at 3 o'clock, have all your clan members there. Tsunade responded. Then, every council member departed the room. Oba-chan, can you get Odo.san and meeting me and Hinata there? I will tell you who put the memory seal on you and him, Naruto replied. Happy that she would know who to kill for stealing her son and grandson, Tsunade gave the order, okay, be there in 10 minutes. The office of Tsunade to find out who had done this to them. Tsunade and Jiraiya were waiting for their grandson to show up. At that moment, Naruto and Hinata entered through the open door. Jiraiya said, okay Naruto, we're here, so who was it? It was Orochimaru. The office of Tsunade clenched her fists so tightly that her nails pierced her palm, drawing blood. What? She growled. Jiraiya put a hand on Tsunade's shoulder and used his thumb to move it in a circular motion on her shoulder blade after noticing and understanding the pain she was experiencing. She did feel calmer after doing this. He started when he saw she was more at ease. Okay Naruto, explain. Yeah, it was Orochimaru. From what I can piece together and guess he found out about Dudat-san and wanted him for his experiment and a weapon, Naruto replied. But if you are only guessing, then how could you possibly know it was Orochimaru? As much as I dislike him, we can't just accuse anyone, Jiraiya responded. Because of the memory seals on you, the signature and chakra within that seal belong to Orochimaru. Okay, I believe you. But why do you think that he left Minato in an orphanage rather than just take him? Well, this was about the time he was discovered by old man Hokage, so I'm guessing he was going to get him when he was old enough but couldn't when he was found out. Naruto thought about it. Tsunade got up and slammed her fist into the desk, exclaiming, okay, so it looks like we are going snake hunting. No, Naruto shocked Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Hinata by saying in a monotone that he wouldn't want to exact revenge on his father. Tsunade's voice was sweet and menacing as she asked, what did you say, Naruto-kun? Naruto stood firmly and said, I said no. Hinata approached him and gave him a hug, asking, why Naruto-kun? I thought you would want to get revenge on Orochimaru. He answered, I do want revenge, just not yet. What's the difference about killing the bastard now or killing him later? Jiraiya inquired. Naruto said, Oba-chan, activate the silence seal. In compliance, Tsunade turned on the seals. Okay. I need the snake bastard alive until I get Sasuke back. He left because we came up with a plan to get stronger by him going with him and me going with Jiraiya. I am meeting with him soon. If he is ready, then I will come back. Then me, you and Odo-san will take him out. So please leave him for now. Just know it is killing me. He is out there just as much as you. Naruto clarified. Tsunade sighed and sank back into her chair behind the desk, saying, fine, but it had better be soon. Then she leaned her head into it and covered Jiraiya's hand on her shoulder with her own. Naruto grinned and remarked, so you two decided to take your grandson's advice and give it another shot. Tsunade smiled affectionately and said, yeah, we have a deal. He isn't allowed to do any more research, and I won't use my chakra-enhanced strength on him. Naruto remarked, good, I'm happy for you both. Okay, I'll see you at the announcement. Do you want me next to you, Oba-chan? Tsunade replied, yes, I would. Naruto nodded and escorted Hinata outside. Jiraiya kissed the top of Tsunade's head and said, he will make an amazing Hokage someday, won't he, Suna? Yeah, he will. You know me and you have a hell of a lot of time to make up to him, and I will never let anything happen to him, be it the Akatsuki or the council. Tsunade responded. Jiraiya grabbed her hand and dragged her from her seat to the door, saying, and you won't be alone in that endeavor. He winked as he concluded, now come on, we have about 40 years of time to make up for ourselves. Tsunade grinned and rolled her eyes. She took her hand off of the tiger seal and created 2 shadow clones, saying, okay, just give me a sec. According to the first clone, you lucky bitch. The second went on, yeah, you get to have fun while me and her do your work. The original took Jiraiya's hand again and led him back to the Senju compound, saying, I know, it's great, isn't it? Compound Hyuga, front gate. Naruto and Hinata had just reached the Hyuga compound's front gate. Hinata has been staring at Naruto's hand in hers the entire way here. She was startled out of her reverie by Naruto's comment, well, looks like we're here, Hinata. Oh yeah, said Hinata. She concluded, I'll see you later, Naruto-kun. She started to enter the compound, but Naruto stopped her because his hand was still in hers. Naruto-kun. Naruto blushed slightly and said, Hinata, I know we are engaged, so after the announcement, at about 7 tonight, we go out on our first date? When Hinata heard his request, she was ecstatic and her face flushed. She started to speak, but then everything went dark and she fainted. When Naruto noticed her falling, he acted fast to catch her. He laughed softly at the unconscious girl. What am I going to do with you, Hina? With a broad smile on her face, she involuntarily nestled closer to Naruto's chest as he carried her in a bridal style and led her into the main house. He passed Hiyashi on his way to her room. Knowing that nothing negative had happened to Hinata while she was with Naruto, Hiyashi asked him, what happened to Hinata? I asked her out on a date tonight and she passed out, said Naruto. I was just going to put her in bed. As he took a pack of smelling salts out of his pocket, Hiyashi responded, there will be no need, I have something that will help. He opened the pack and placed it beneath Hinata's nose. Their scent entered her nostrils. She opened her eyes and fidgeted in Naruto's arms a moment later. Hinata grumbled, ew, what is that smell? But then realized she was being carried by someone and not outside anymore. She followed the arms to meet Naruto's eyes directly. He said, afternoon, sleepy. Hinata blushed to be in this position. Then Naruto turned to face Hiyashi. He laughed and said, I'll have to get some of them. Hiyashi went into father mode and remarked, it would seem, by the way, you can put her down now. Naruto complied and allowed her to stand. Naruto turned as he started to leave, saying, well, I'd better get going. He called back and then left the house, saying, I'll pick you up at 7, Hinata. Naruto-kun and I are going on a date. After mentally screaming, Hinata hurried to her room to get dressed. As he went about his business, Hiyashi remarked, ha, young love. The Hokage Tower for an announcement. The whole village had assembled in the square outside the Hokage Tower. Both shinobi and civilians were present. Jiraiya, Naruto, Koharu, Homura, Danzo, and Tsunade were all on the roof of the Hokage Tower. Tsunade approached the platform in front of the audience. Good afternoon, Konoha. I have asked you all to gather here today to inform you of information that has come to light about Minato Namikaze and Naruto Uzumaki. The crowd became agitated as a result of this. Tsunade continued to describe the situation between the Sennin and Minato, omitting the part about Orochimaru being the culprit. Silence, please. As you all know, Minato Namikaze was an orphan. However, it has come to my attention that Minato was in fact the son of myself and Lord Jiraiya. Tsunade turned to Naruto and said, "So as he was my son Minato will be renamed Minato Senju." Then Naruto approached her and said, "Come here, Naruto. Now this information is about Naruto. He is the son of Kushina Uzumaki and Minato Senju." There was a great commotion in the crowd as a result. While some were incensed, as Naruto had anticipated, the majority observed Naruto's resemblance to his parents, Minato's appearance, and Kushina's disposition. The fact that so few people were upset by the news made Tsunade smile. Seems as Naruto is Minato's son, it also makes him mine and Jiraiya's grandson, and so his name also has been changed to Naruto Uzumaki Senju, and he will gain custody of the Namikaze compound, which will be named the Uzumaki Senju compound. Tsunade concluded. Now that information is public knowledge, if any of you show any contempt to Naruto, you will have to deal with me and Lord Jiraiya. Everyone then went their separate ways to carry on with their daily lives. To prepare for his date with Hinata, Naruto went home. Senju Uzumaki compound. Through the front door, Naruto entered. As Naruto was engulfed in a red blur, a girl's voice yelled, "Naruto, Keikuen." With a laugh, Naruto touched the red hair. "Heya, Seta. If you're here, I'm guessing Uncle Takahiro is here too?" Seta replied, "Yep, Daddy, in the kitchen with Mammy. She shares Naruto's cerulean eyes and red hair. She is 2 years old." Naruto picked her up and placed her on his shoulders, saying, "Okay, let's go see them." As she tugged at Naruto's hair a little, Seta squealed, "Yippee, go doggy go." Naruto simply laughed and went into the kitchen to meet his Aunt Lilia Uzumaki and Uncle Takahiro Uzumaki. Takahiro called out to the blonde, "Hey Naruto." Senju Uzumaki compound. Naruto said, "Hey UNC, how was the trip?" The red-haired man said, "Great, Seta really wanted to get here as fast as we could so she could see you." Takahiro has green eyes, a muscular body, short red hair, and a scar that extends from the middle of his left cheek to beneath his left eye. Naruto looked up at the 2-year-old on his shoulders and asked, "Is that true, Seta?" Seta tapped the top of Naruto's head and said, "Yeah, me see Naruto." Naruto removed Seta from his shoulders and placed him on the ground, saying, "Oh really, I guess you don't want to see cow then." Seta jumped up and down and pouted, "No, no cow. Cow." Naruto glanced up at Takahiro and Lilia's amused expressions. Naruto said, "Okay." Then he wiped his thumb on his left palm after biting it. Naruto slammed his hand into the ground and uttered the words, "Summoning Jutsu." A little puff of smoke was the end result. A tiny white fox cub emerged from the smoke after a few seconds. "Cow!" Seta exclaimed, picking up the fox cub and giving it a hug. "Seta!" exclaimed Cow, licking Seta's face. Naruto smiled as he watched the scene unfold. It was 6 p.m. when he looked at the tabletop clock. Naruto ran down the hall to his room and said, "Crap. Hey UNC, it was good to see you, but I have to get ready. I have a date with Hinata to get ready for. See ya." He showered and prepared his clothes. After getting out of the shower, he dressed and checked himself in the mirror. He wore a black dinner jacket, black sandals, dress pants, and a dark orange long-sleeved shirt with the top button undone. He grinned at how he looked and noticed that he had 15 minutes to reach the Hyuga compound. He left his room and went into the living room, where Takahiro was sitting on the couch, Lilia's head resting on his lap, and they were watching Seta and Cow play. Naruto left the room to the yay of Seta and the yip of Cow, saying, "I'm going. I'll be back about 11. Cow, you can stay as long as you want." The Hyuga compound. Sitting on her bed, Hinata waited tensely for Naruto to arrive for their date. She was dressed in tights, rose-colored heels, and a short-sleeved, rose-red dress that fell just above her knees. Her physical features were accentuated in the dress. Wearing the dress was a little uncomfortable for her, but she wanted to try her best for Naruto. From beyond her door, Hiyashi's voice said, "Hinata." Stuttering, Hinata said, "See. Come in T.2.san." Hiyashi entered through the sliding door of her house. He grinned as he glanced at his daughter. "Naruto is a lucky man." Hiyashi said, "You look amazing, Hinata." Hinata blushed at this remark. Hinata questioned, "Yo. You real think so?" "Of course Hinata." Hiyashi answered this. At that moment, a branch member approached Hinata's door. The branch member said, "Hiyashi. Sama, Hinata. Sama. Uzumaki. Senju. Sama is at the front gate." Hiyashi smiled once more at this. As he left her room, Hiyashi remarked, "Good, now come Hinata." Hinata trailed behind. Naruto was waiting for them at the front gate. One word simultaneously sprang to mind as soon as the two teenagers laid eyes on one another. Wow. As he scratched the back of his head, Naruto said, Hey Hinata, chan. Pushing her index fingers together, Hinata said, Hello Naruto.kun. So Uzumaki. Senju. Sama, when will you bring Hinata home? Hiyashi responded. Naruto said, 11 p.m. sir. Whispering into Naruto's ear, Hiyashi said, okay, but if you hurt my daughter I will hurt you. Naruto swallowed. I am a shinobi and a ranger. Despite the fact that I have battled Orochimaru twice, Shikaku, and had Kurama sealed in me, I still fear my fiancé copyright ease 2.san. He took her hand and escorted her out of the compound, saying, okay Hinata. Chan, let go. Naruto leaned into Hinata's ear while they were strolling. You look absolutely beautiful Hinata. That big jacket hides your beauty. With a flush, Hinata said, Thank you so much Hinata. Where are we going Naruto? Well we are going to a restaurant called Green Haven first, but the rest is a surprise, replied Naruto. Green Haven. The waiter greeted Naruto and Hinata as they entered the restaurant and showed them to the table that Naruto had reserved earlier in the day. The table was located next to a window with a breathtaking view of the Hokage monument on the second floor. Approaching one of the seats, Naruto took it out. The voice of Naruto said, Here Hinata. Chan. Naruto pushed the chair back up to the table after Hinata had seated herself in it. Thank you Naruto.kun. After that, Naruto moved to the other chair and took a seat. The waiter then handed the menu to them both. Both of them perused the menu and placed their orders. The two talked about their activities during Naruto's 4-year absence while they waited for the food, training, missions, gossip, and how Naruto met Lilia and joined the Ranger Corps were the primary subjects discussed during the time frame. I was traveling to the land of whirlpools to see Uzumaki, began Naruto. A flashback. The land of Fire's shore. Naruto had just arrived at the land of Fire's shore. He could see the island known as the land of whirlpools when he gazed out to sea. He was bothered by something, though. To what appeared to be no one, Naruto questioned, I thought you said that the land of whirlpools is surrounded by whirlpools. It should be. That is what made it hard to get to. The only way for the whirlpools to not be here is they have been deactivated from inside Uzumaki. That means someone is in there, Kurama replied. Naruto smirked and said, okay, so it looks like we are going to have to watch our backs. Are you ready? Yeah, let's go. Naruto then began to make his way to the island by foot across the sea. Uzumaki. Naruto was strolling through the village that had once belonged to his family. While Kurama kept an eye out for any unknown chakra in the area, he was looking for the Uzumaki clan's clan house. Naruto kept walking down the road until he came across the Uzumaki spiral, which is a symbol of the Uzumaki clan. Kurama felt a chakra he hadn't felt in 15 years as soon as he touched the symbol. Kurama snarled, impossible. When Naruto heard this, he turned around and was struck in the neck by a kunai. Naruto addressed the cloaked figure in front of him, saying, been some time since someone got the drop on me. What are you doing here? The figure in the cloak inquired. Naruto shot back, what business is it of yours what I am doing here? The cloaked figure growled, considering you are on my family's grounds I have every right. Naruto was somewhat taken aback by this revelation because he had been led to believe he was the final Uzumaki. What did you say? I said this is my family's ground you little punk, ya know. Kurama snarled, no, there is no way, she is dead. What are you up to? In his mind, Naruto addressed the fox. She just said, ya know, do you remember someone else who said that? Replied Kurama. When Naruto suddenly realized what was happening, he turned to face the hooded figure and noticed red hair in the shadow of the hood. Ka.san? Asked Naruto. How? You died. The hooded figure was perplexed by this. What the hell are you talking about? Having a single tear in his eye, Naruto said, Ka.san, it's me Naruto. Remember your son. What are you talking about kid, I don't have a son. But my Ka.san always said, Yano, at the end of her sentences, she was born in this village and she has red hair, which I can see you have. The cloaked figure was struck like a ton of bricks by this statement. What was you Ka.san's name, kid? My Ka.san's name was Kushina Uzumaki, daughter of Chikara Uzumaki, head of the Uzumaki clan and his wife Tsugumi Uzumaki. Naruto was beaming. When the figure heard the three names, they took a few steps back and dropped the kunai, letting their arms drop to their sides. The cloaked figure lowered their head and asked, are you saying your Ka.san was Kushina Uzumaki, heir to the Uzumaki clan? Yes. Why did you know her? Yes, I knew her. With the knowledge that both of his parents had numerous enemies, Naruto questioned, really, what was she to you? When the hooded figure removed their cloak, their face resembled Kushina's, with the exception that her eyes were blue rather than aggressive like Kushina's. She was my twin sister. Final flashback. A year or so after that we explored the compound for any family scrolls and heirlooms. Once that was done she took me to Ranger Corps HQ and got me enlisted. Naruto concluded. Hinata responded, wow Naruto.kun, that was an interesting story. They paid and ate their meals to continue the date. It was time for Naruto to sort of reveal their next destination. Naruto replied cryptically, it is a place of beginning, that is all I'm saying. Hinata pouted and said, that isn't much help, Naruto.kun. They walked on until they reached the academy. They passed it and entered the wooden section of the playground that was just beyond the walls. Until they reached a tiny clearing, they kept moving through this forested area. Hinata realized that the riddle Naruto had given her made sense when she saw the clearing. It is a place of beginning. You were talking about the place where you and I first met, Hinata replied. Naruto gazed down at her with a smile. Yep, this is the place them three bullies were bullying you for being a Hyuga and I tried to help. Which didn't end well for me now that I think about it. This made Hinata laugh. Maybe. But that day was the day I started to admire you first standing up of people, Hinata replied. After walking to the middle of the clearing, they both lay down on the grass. Naruto had his arm wrapped around Hinata as she lay with her head resting on his shoulder. Both of them simply lay there gazing at the stars. As time passed, Hinata dozed off on Naruto. Naruto gazed down at Hinata's serene face. He moved her and himself so that he was standing, carrying her bridal style, so as not to wake her. After giving her a forehead kiss, he began carrying her back to her house. The Hyuga compound Hiyashi was standing there when the front door of Hinata's house opened, and Naruto had just reached it. Hiyashi said, hello. A little anxious, Naruto said, hey, Hinata fell asleep and I didn't want to wake her, so would I be okay if I take her to her room? Hiyashi stepped aside to allow Naruto to enter and said, of course. When Naruto heard it, he moved a little further down the hallway. Don't try any funny business. After arriving at her room, Naruto opened the door. After entering her room and gently setting Hinata on the bed, he got back up. Hinata woke up, feeling the warmth of Naruto gone, and turned to face him. Hey sleepyhead. Hey. Naruto leaned down and kissed Hinata, saying, I have to be going Hinata, but this was an amazing night and we will do it again sometime. They started kissing, giving it their all. Before both of them need air, this lasts a minute. Naruto said as he made his way to the door, good night my Hime. As Naruto shut the door to Hinata's bedroom, she said, good night, my ranger. The Tsunade outer wall in the shadow of the enormous sand walls, two figures were concealed. They were both wearing red clouds and a black cloak. The blonde stood up straight and said, are you ready to do this Sasori my man? The short, hunched one named Sasori replied, just stick to the plan Deidara and don't keep my waiting too long. You know I hate waiting. Deidara pulled out some clay and put it in a mouth in the palm of his hand after saying, I know we will have the one. Tail soon. A few seconds later, the clay was spit out of the mouth again in the shape of an owl. After setting the owl on the ground, Deidara observed its remarkable growth. To complete his mission, Deidara leapt on the back and flew over the wall. The fight unfolds in the same way as canon. The following day, in the afternoon, Tsunade's office. Tsunade told her grandson, Naruto, I think it's time to test your skills so I can work out what level you are on. Eager to get into combat, Naruto said, okay, so when do we begin? Tsunade was about to respond when a ranger appeared in the office and a shinobi burst through the door. The ranger and the shinobi both yelled, Kuroku Kitsune, and Hokage Sama, simultaneously. At the name, Naruto winced. Tsunade questioned, Kuroku Kitsune? He turned to face the ranger after saying, long story. What? The ranger declared, Gaara has been kidnapped. Naruto squinted his eyes. By who? Naruto inquired, but he already knew the response. As she read the scroll the shinobi had given her, Tsunade remarked, by two men in black robes with red clouds. With a growl, Naruto said, the Akatsuki, the office of the Hokage. Naruto inquired, when did he get taken by them? Last night, someone attacked Suna. Gaara defended Suna to the best of his ability but had to take the brunt of an attack to protect the whole village. Tsunade was reading aloud. Recalling what Minato had done for Konoha, Naruto grinned sorrowfully and remarked, just like what the Kage will do. Sacrifice himself for the good of the village. Sir, the members that kidnapped Gaara was Deidara of Iwagakure and Sasori of Tsunade. The ranger responded. Okay. They aren't too tough compared to the other members. Tell the commandant that he doesn't need to deploy the other Kuroku. I will do this myself with some Konoha nin. However, tell him I will send a messenger with information and a location of when I will need them, in a few weeks. Naruto stated to the ranger. After that, the ranger vanished. Then Naruto faced Tsunade once more. Okawa-san, I want to take this mission. I also was Sakura for healing, as no doubt if Sasori is involved someone is poisoned. I need Hinata for tracking and for Rakan and Kakashi. Sensei to lead this mission. Naruto said, until he recalled a detail. Wait, isn't Temari in the village? Tsunade paused to reflect. Yes, she is. Okay, then have her and the team meet me at the village gate as fast as you can. Also, when I get back I will explain about the Kuroku. After all, you and Oto-san will be fight with them and I... Naruto said as he jumped from the window. Tsunade grinned at this action. Tsunade leaned back in her chair and remarked, so he has taken after his Oto-san. Anbu, she cried out. 4 of her Anbu guards showed up. Together, they said, yes ma'am. Tsunade gave one of the Anbu a scroll and instructed them to tell Sakura Haruno, Hinata Hyuga, Kakashi Hitaki, and Temari no Sabaku to meet at the village gate straight away and give Temari this scroll. Also tell Kakashi he better be on time. Then they vanished. 20 minutes later, village gate. Naruto and his group have just arrived at the gate. Naruto addressed the other residents, saying, okay, so Gaara has been kidnapped and we are going after him. However, we are going to Suna to assess the damage in the village and see if there are any leads in finding Gaara. To the nods of the teenagers, Kakashi stated, okay, so I will be at the head of the group with Pakun. Temari and Sakura will be in the middle of the group, and Naruto and Hinata will take the rear. They leapt into the tree branches towards Suna and said, so let's move out. The river country they had spent several hours jumping. Before Naruto noticed Temari, he and Hinata were discussing unrelated topics and sharing information about their element releases. As might be expected, she was quiet and depressed. As he accelerated to be by Temari's side, Naruto declared, I'll be a second Hinata. Haim. How you holding up? Temari snarled, how do you think my brother could be dead for all I know? You really think Gaara would give up that easy? Temari responded, no, he is powerful, he will be okay. That's right, just have hope, he won't give up, so you shouldn't either. Naruto cracked a grin. After that, Naruto slowed down to join Hinata. Unknown Cave. Sasori and Deidara had just brought a massive, distorted statue to the cave. With the statue's enormous hands on either side of Gaara, they positioned him in front of it. Sasori and Deidara leapt to the hands. Sasori stood on the statue's left thumb, and Deidara stood on its right index finger. 8 lights, representing 7 men and a woman, emerged on the other digits as they both directed their chakra toward the statue. On the right thumb of the statue, the orange-haired man asked, have you finished your mission, Deidara and Sasori? Pointing to Gaara, Deidara answered, yeah, we have the one. Tail is there. The same orange-haired man said, all right, let's get started, since it's just the one. Tail, it should only take a few hours. The hand signals for tiger, snake, ray, ox, dog, and ram were all made by them. Together, the 10 of them uttered the words, sealing jutsu, 9 phantom dragons. Following their statement, the statue's mouth opened, revealing 9 blue chakra dragons that struck Gaara. The pain roused Gaara from his unconsciousness. Shukaku's chakra poured out, and his mouth and eyes exploded. Tsunade. The team had just reached Suna's gates when they noticed some minor damage brought on by Deidara. 2 Suna nin suddenly appeared on the team. Lady Temari, come quick. Lord Kankuro has been poisoned by one of the assailants that kidnapped Kage. Sama. A shinobi replied. Temari's expression fell. Okay team, let's go. Sakura, you will be able to heal Kankuro, right? Kakashi responded. I should be able to as long as I know the poison he used. Sakura replied. They all nodded in agreement after learning this and headed for the Kage mansion. The Kage mansion. The group arrived at the mansion. The room where Kankuro was shown to them. They walked into the room, where Kankuro lay on the table, in agony and drenched in sweat. Suna med nin was all around him, attempting to determine how they could be of assistance. Temari rushed to Kankuro's side as soon as she saw him, crying as she gazed down at him. Then, with beseeching eyes, she turned back to the team. Please Sakura, help him. I can't lose both of them. This prompted Sakura to act. She collected supplies from around the room and looked through his files. Do we know the poison used? One of the med nin stated, no Sasori had a poison with no known cure. Naruto responded, not true. Everyone's eyes were on Naruto. Ranger! Exclaimed Naruto. Then a ranger showed up. Yes, Kuroku Kitsune? Inquired the ranger. Naruto commanded, I need all the records on Sasori no Akasuna, now. When he dematerialized, the ranger said, yes sir, I'll be back in a few minutes. The ranger reappeared with records a few minutes later. The ranger handed Naruto the records and said, here sir. Is that all sir? The ranger dematerialized, and Naruto replied, yes, thank you. Then Naruto looked at Sakura. Naruto gave her the records and said, here are all the known poisons and cures of Sasori. Sakura pushed everyone out of the room and said, okay, will everyone except the med nin leave the room so I can work? Half an hour later Sakura smiled as she exited the room. 30 minutes later, she gave Temari a look. Kankuro is going to be okay Temari. He will need a few days rest but after that he'll be okay. Temari leapt to his feet and gave Sakura a hug. Thank you Sakura. Sakura returned the hug after admitting, it's okay, but if it weren't for Naruto I wouldn't have been able to help. They separated after a few seconds, and Temari turned to embrace Naruto. In gratitude, Temari said, thank you Naruto. Naruto broke the embrace and remarked, it's okay, but we have more important things right now. To find out where Deidara and Sasori have taken Gaara, we must return to the front gate. The desert they were going to use Hinata's Byakugan to follow the chakra trail, but it had been too long and the chakra had dispersed, so Temari stayed with Kankuro instead of joining Naruto and the team as they traveled north to find Gaara. One of the Suna elders, Chiyo, decided to accompany them after learning that one of the attackers was her grandson Sasori. Kurama was fortunate enough to sense Shukaku being taken from Gaara, so they followed Naruto. The unknown cave's exterior. After several hours of travel, they had reached a massive boulder on the cliff face, with a massive torii in front of it. Kit, you have to hurry up, Shukaku is almost gone, Kurama replied. Replaying to the team, Naruto said, we have to hurry, Gaara won't last much longer. They approached the massive boulder on the river in front of it, and Sakura prepared her arm to punch and break it. She ran up to it, but Naruto suddenly appeared beside her, grabbed her wrist, and stopped the momentum. Sakura gave Naruto a furious look. Why the devil did you stop me? I thought you said we had to hurry, Sakura snarled. Notice the seal in the middle of the boulder. We don't currently know what that seal does, Naruto remarked. After that, Naruto ascended the boulder to the seal, and as he focused on it, his cerulean blue eyes began to change into the blood-red Slited Kitsugans in a whirlpool. Like transformation. Fuck. Naruto said, loud enough for the team to hear, this is going to take a while to sort out. Is that Naruto-kun? Hinata inquired. That seal is only a fifth of the whole thing, Naruto said as he leapt down from the boulder and landed close to his friends. Naruto clarified, it's called a five-pointed barrier seal. Unknown cave. The man with the orange hair said, someone is attempting to enter the cave. Deidara replied, yeah. Itachi, Kisame, we don't need you now, go and back up Deidara and Sasori. The humanoid shark, Kisame, remarked, finally some action. The black-haired Itachi said, yes. Then they both vanished. Outside the unknown cave, barrier seal with 5 points? Sakura inquired. Yes, that only makes up a fifth of the entire seal. Naruto looked up at the seal and said, they're dispersed throughout a region and safeguard whatever is within it. Kurama, how long do we have? Naruto asked. Kurama clarified, saying, not long, about 5 minutes at the most. We won't have time to take out this seal and get Gaara in time. As though by some miracle. Yash. They looked up to see Team 9 after hearing the phrase, from above the team. Naruto grinned and said, I never thought I would be happy to hear that. Team 9 touched down on the water. My eternal rival, Kakashi. Guy gave a thumbs up and yelled. Naruto, my enduring adversary, Lee yelled, imitating Guy. Tenten and Neji said, hey guys. The girl and you two are right on time. Naruto began by making the tiger seal and 4 clones appear, all accompanied by Kitsugan, and said, we need you to go and remove 4 seals that are around this area. Follow these clones and you will be able to find them. I take it you have your own comm systems? After revealing a small speaker and microphone fastened to his collar, Neji smirked and said, of course. He then removed his pack, took out an extra communication system, and tossed it to Naruto. Naruto put on the collar and said, right, go clones. The clones then approached a member of Team 9. They each flew to a designated seal. Naruto walked back up the boulder to the seal and said, okay Sakura, once I have taken the seal off, destroy the boulder. Neji said, in position. Over the comm. Tenten says, same here. Here, yelled Lee. Ready, exclaimed Guy. As he and Team 9 seized the seals, Naruto uttered the words, okay on 3. Onia Euro 2 a Euro 3. They all tore off the seal. Naruto yelled, Sakura, hurry up now. Clones destroy the ground of under the seal, quick. Rasengan. The clones yelled. The surface the seals were on was destroyed by Sakura and the clones. The boulder fell away from the cave's entrance. Kurama said somberly, Kid, I'm sorry but Shukaku has been extracted. As Naruto peered into the cave, he said, no, others were still unable to see. Hinata said, what, Naruto-kun? Naruto declared, they did it. They got Shukaku out of Gaara. The rest of the team gasped at this. The situation was made 10 times worse by the sight that greeted him. Deidara was sitting on Gaara's body in front of him, with Sasori beside him. That's right, my man, we took the tailed beast out and left the rest, Deidara yelled. Sasori went on, at least you didn't keep me waiting for a fight. Over the comm, Lee said, Naruto, we have a problem. Speaking into the microphone, Naruto asked, Lee, what's wrong? Kisame Hoshigaki and Itachi Uchiha are here. We'll keep them busy for as long as we can. Guy continued. Naruto looked at the 2 Akatsuki members and began, now. With a demonic tone, Naruto declared, I'm gonna kill you. Deidara threw a small clay owl on the floor, and it grew larger. You will have to catch me first. After leaping onto its back, Deidara used its tail to lift Gaara's body and took off for the opening. As the owl flew out of the opening and down the fissure, Naruto jumped and grabbed its foot, saying, oh hell no. Kakashi said, Hinata, you pursue Naruto and support him. After giving a nod, Hinata turned around and followed Naruto and Deidara out of sight. He, Sakura, and Shio assumed a fighting stance as Kakashi uttered the words, okay Sakura, Shio. It's up to us to take out Sasori. Sasori said, pushing his arms and tail out of the cloak and tearing it to expose a face mask underneath. Granny Shio, are you ready to be added to my collection? Sakura exclaimed, what the hell is that? Shio clarified, that is a puppet named Hirako, not Sasori's actual body. Kakashi went on to say, so his real body is inside the puppet. Yes. So we have the advantage, right? As you seem to know a lot about it, Lady Shio. Sakura inquired. Unfortunately, no, this puppet is different from the one I know. That shell and left arm are new. Not to mention the new hidden mechanisms. We have to destroy that thing. Shio clarified. How? Inquired Sakura. Shio said, glancing at Sakura, with the monstrous strength you have learnt from her. You have to get in close and destroy it without getting hit. According to Sakura, poison. Yes. As you know, the smallest cut can be fatal. He will hit you with everything he has, so to counter you must anticipate every move. But I can't do that. As she affixed chakra threads to Sakura's head and limbs, Shio remarked, I know, but I will help. I will control your movements, you just supply the strength. Kakashi said, lifting his headband to reveal his Sharingan, hey, don't forget me. Let's go. Sakura and Kakashi then both ran towards Sasori. Are they really going to attack me directly? As he threw his metal tail at Sakura, he thought. Sakura grinned, though, as her body abruptly swung to the left, sending his tail crashing to the ground. Sakura then grabbed the tail and tugged. Sasori's tail was raised into the air. As lightning began to flare around his hand, Kakashi yelled, Chidori, and pushed it into the tail, cutting it off. Sakura ran at Hirako after releasing the tail. She drew her arm back and filled her fist with chakra. She yelled, Shaw, as she smashed the puppet and punched Hirako. A small portion of the cloak abruptly leapt back. So you finally show your real body. Take off that rag, I have come all this way to see my grandson, Shio replied. Sasori's face was exposed when he removed the rag. Shio exclaimed in shock, How? It has been 20 years and you look exactly the same. Sasori took a scroll from his sleeves and opened it, writing the number 3 on it. Enough talk, I want to show you something special. 3? Inquired Sakura. Sasori remained silent while he concealed himself in smoke and activated the scroll. Chio's and Kakashi's eyes widened at what they witnessed. According to Chio, impossible, what? Inquired Sakura. Is that a euro? Began Kakashi. As a puppet representation of the third Kage emerged from the smoke, Chio interrupted. Yes, the third Kage. It's been 10 years since he disappeared. We search everywhere but no trace was left. It was you who killed him, Chio concluded. Sasori answered, Yes, Granny Chio, it was. But I need to kill you now and then go after that Jinchuriki, Sasori replied. Sakura and Kakashi glared at him as a result. The third Kage then charged at Sakura and Kakashi after Sasori moved his hand. Chio pulled Sakura back, and Kakashi leapt. This was in vain, though, as the third Kage flicked his hand, causing a blade to emerge from it and aim directly at Sakura. As he landed next to Hiriko's tail, Kakashi quickly considered this. He kicked the tail in the direction of the blades. They were sent to Sakura's right after the tail deflected the blade just before it struck her. Sakura seized the chance to kick the puppet in the head, causing it to fly back to Sasori. Thanks Kakashi. Sensei. Subsequently, the third Kage hurried the two once more, but this time he displayed seals by thrusting his right arm out in front. Hundreds of puppet arms sprang out and headed directly for the two as the seals activated. Sakura said, "Damn," and began to make hand gestures. Sakura yelled, "Water style. Water wall," as water blasted out of her mouth, hitting the ground and shooting upward, catching the arms and sending them flying in all directions. She cancelled the jutsu after realizing that the water wall was effective. Sasori, however, smirked at this and flicked his finger, causing a poison to be released into the air from one of Sakura's arms. When Sakura was caught in it, Kakashi managed to dodge the cloud. Sasori noticed this and flicked his hand once more, sending an arm flying out of the ground and encircling Kakashi's leg. Sakura was holding her breath inside the cloud. The puppet arms had also seized her, preventing her from moving. "It seems your student is going to die, Kakashi Hitaki. Breathe in one bit of the poison and you're gonna," Sasori exclaimed. "No, as I can help it." Kakashi began making hand gestures too quickly for Sasori to respond. He exclaimed, "Wind style. Great breakthrough," as he took a deep breath and exhaled it quickly at the poison cloud. As a result, Sakura was held firmly in the puppet hands as the cloud dispersed onto the wind. With no other option, Chio swiftly withdrew two scrolls and activated them, causing two puppets to appear at Euro. The brown-haired one in front of Sakura and the red-headed one in front of Kakashi. Sasori took advantage of the two being trapped by flicking his wrist and another arms shooting out kunai to Kakashi and Sakura. The puppet was being embedded with kunai. Sasori remarked, "So you brought them?" "Yes, I see you remember the very first puppets you created," Chio replied. The red-headed one lifted its head and said, "The father." The brown-haired one lifted its head and said, "And the mother?" Sakura inquired, "The mother, the Fathera Euro Sasori's parents?" "Yes. Kind of pointless, don't you think? I created them, I know all their tricks," Sasori replied. Chio said, "Manipulating the father back to the mother, oh really?" With a black wire connecting them, they joined hands and parted. Both of them suddenly leapt forward. Sasori pulled the arms back, but not quickly enough because the black wire cut them. All he could do was separate the limb, and a saw appeared in its place. After breaking the wire, the mother produced a sword and the father produced a wooden whip with a blade. Hit for hit, the three puppets engaged in combat. Chio and Sasori were both a blur. Sakura had said, "Amazing." As he emerged beside Sakura, Kakashi remarked, "This is the true power of puppet masters, but let's go." Sakura and he both ran ahead to Sasori. A kunai with an explosive tag was drawn by both of them, and they were thrown in the direction of the puppet master. Sasori was distracted by having to avoid the kunai and the explosion, which allowed Chio to gain the upper hand. The father was able to remove the blades, and the mother was able to use the saw to separate it from the third Kage. The puppets all retreated. As fragments of iron began to float out of the third Kage's mouth, Sasori remarked, "Looks like I'll have to use one of my secret weapons." The eyes of Kakashi and Chio both widened. As she forced the mother and the father to move forward, Chio yelled, "No, we can't let him use that." Kakashi gave Sakura a look. "Sakura, do you know the water cannon?" he inquired. "Yeah. Okay, use it now." Sakura went over the hand signals after nodding. She yelled, "Water style. Water cannon," as a massive water cannonball blasted from her mouth. After briefly examining the water cannon with his Sharingan to determine the chakra ratio, Kakashi proceeded to go over the hand signals. He yelled, "Lightning style. Thunderbolt," as he threw the lightning he was holding at the water cannon. The two jutsu combined when they struck it. There were now lightning specks surrounding the water cannon. The third Kage puppet was defending against the mother and the father when the jutsu struck it with such force that it knocked it back, and the iron conducting the lightning caused the puppet to explode. There was no time to dodge. Half of the roof collapsed due to the explosion. Sasori vanished from view as the dirt that was thrown up combined with the explosion's smoke. A kunai emerged from the smoke, pointing directly at Sakura. She moved only at the last second after noticing it. The kunai sliced her cheek as it passed. Then she fell to the floor. Kakashi would have hurried over, but more kunai emerged from the cloud and were aimed at him. However, he was able to avoid them all by using his Sharingan. As the smoke cleared, Sasori remarked, "Too bad she got hit." All of them kunai were laced with poison. His Akatsuki cloak had been torn off by the explosion, revealing what lay beneath it. In addition to having a black talisman where his heart should be, he also had 2 bladed fans emerging from his side, 4 scrolls in a metal holder on his back, and what appeared to be a coil of metal cable in his midsection. He was a puppet, not a human. Chiyo watched in disbelief. "You turned yourself into a puppet." As he raised his arms and flames emerged from 2 nozzles in his palms, he remarked, "Yes, real art is meant to last for eternity. Now I will." After giving it some quick thought, Chiyo and Kakashi hid behind 2 boulders. Sakura was fortunate to have positioned herself behind a boulder prior to the onset of flames. The fire continued to spread. The boulders they were hiding behind began to melt under the intensity, forcing Kakashi and Chiyo to keep moving. Both of them were approaching Sasori counterclockwise. As a result, Sasori failed to see Sakura sprint up behind him and give him a side of the head jump kick that sent him flying. Sasori extinguished his fire and clung to the ground, reducing his speed until he stopped completely. Boiling water began to shoot out of the nozzles, directly toward Sakura, and the top scroll vanished from his back. Leaping back, she hid behind the same boulder that Kakashi had been hiding behind. "How are you moving? The poison should have taken effect straight away," replied Kakashi. "It has, but I made some extra antidote back in Suna just in case and I took one," Sakura clarified. Both of them leapt away, and the boulder began to crack under the water's pressure. Chiyo pulled a chakra thread and leapt from behind the boulder she was hiding behind, saying, "Not this time, boy." The thread went directly at Sasori after yanking the head of the 3rd cages out from beneath some debris. He reacted quickly, shifting his aim so that the head was on both nozzles. The water's pressure forced the head back against the wall, crushing it. Taking advantage of the distraction, Sakura and Kakashi regrouped with Chiyo. After that, the bottom scroll vanished as he launched a metal cable from his midsection directly at Sakura, slashing her side. Fortunately, she had the antidote, which prevented the full effects of the poison from taking effect. It went on and became embedded in the rock. Sasori launched after aiming for Chiyo as it began to retract. His blade fans began to spin like a buzz saw while he was in the air. Sakura yelled, "Lady Chiyo!" as she approached the cable, snatched it, and began to draw it in to stop Sasori. She persisted in pulling, but Sasori approached Chiyo until Sakura pulled all the cable and managed to stop him before he reached her. Then she swung the cable in her direction, pulling it even harder. When he was close, she released the cable and struck Sasori in the chest, sending the puppet's head and limbs flying in all directions. Taking deep breaths, Sakura exclaimed, "Iyayuro did it." "Yes you did, Sakura." She returned the smile when Kakashi's eye grinned at her. Then she stood up and began to move in the direction of the 2. That is, until she heard wood moving behind her. When Sakura turned around and saw Sasori reassembling, she thought, "No way, that's impossible." With a scroll taken from her pouch, Chiyo declared, "This fight has just begun." She unrolled the scroll and made the hand signal, saying, "I didn't want to use this again, but against you, I must." Around Chiyo, the 10 seals on the scroll came to life and took the shape of 10 puppets. Granny Chiyo's famous jutsu, White Secret Technique, the Chikamatsu collection of 10 puppets. "I heard you were able to take out an entire fortress with this collection." Sasori replied. He extracted the 2nd scroll using a chakra thread. As he threw the scroll above him, it unraveled and the puppet exploded out. He then opened a door on his chest that contained chakra, which formed 100 threads and attached to the puppets as they emerged. However, as impressive as that Iyayuro, he continued. When Sakura, Kakashi, and Chiyo were placed in the shadow of 100 puppets, their eyes widened and became scared. "It is nothing compared to my red secret technique, performance of 100 puppets, as I used these to destroy an entire nation," he said. "How annoying it is that I had to use my best puppets to remove a Chunin, an old hag, and a girl." "Sakura, that poison has weakened you, stay out of this," Chiyo replied. Sakura grinned as she turned back to face Chiyo. She turned to face the puppets and remarked, "It isn't like me to give up. You truly have inherited Tsunade's will and passion." The 2 nodded, and Kakashi said, "What do you say, ladies, how about we make this the finale?" Then, as the puppets produced weapons, Sasori gave the order for them to attack. The trio took immediate action. Chiyo joined forces with 2 of her puppets to launch an attack. With the other, one swung it like a saw. After it struck one of Sasori's, there was a brief power struggle before Chiyo's prevailed, decapitated the puppet, and proceeded to remove another 15 or so. The ones that came at her were totally destroyed as Sakura went fist to fist with them, punching them left and right. Similar to Sakura, Kakashi was removing the puppets by using his Sharingan in response to their movements. This went on. Chiyo employs ninjutsu, kenjutsu, and concealed weapons on her puppets. Kakashi and Sakura kept beating them. The energy and chakra were eventually running low, but the puppets simply continued to appear, until sand burial. All of Sasori's puppets were suddenly covered in sand. Sand mass coffin. The puppets were reduced to dust by all the sand. When Kakashi, Sakura, and Chiyo turned to face the cave's entrance in disbelief, they saw Naruto, Hinata, and a most unexpectedly a Gaara standing there. Sasori exclaimed incredulously, "Impossible. You had the one tail extracted, you should be dead." The answer from Gaara was, "Yes, should be." Then Naruto whistled as he passed Gaara and entered what was left of the cave. Then he turned to Sasori and said, "You really did a number on this place." Naruto's eyes whirled into the Kitsugan as he began to run towards Sasori, saying, "You're going down." Sasori used his final scroll out of fear, and more arms began to emerge from behind him, aiming for Naruto. Naruto simply kept running, and when he got close, he began to leap from arm to arm as he approached. When he finally reached Sasori, he pushed him back against the wall by placing his hand in the center of his chest. Sealing technique. Lion closing roar. Naruto's hand released a white substance that covered Sasori's lower body and midsection, sealing him to the wall and creating a seal around him. When Kakashi and Chiyo saw that he had sealed Sakura, they relaxed and turned to face the three new arrivals. Kakashi remarked, "You arrived just in time. Those puppets were hard work." Naruto saw something move close to Sakura as he made his way back to the three. When he saw what it was, he rushed and shoved her aside, only to have the sword stab him in the stomach. The attacker's hood was quickly removed to reveal Sasori. Sakura, Kakashi, and Chiyo noticed the black talisman missing and turned back to see it in this Sasori's chest. Everyone looked in shock as they looked at the puppet sealed on the wall. Naruto reached for the sword's blade. He exclaimed, "Sealing technique. Paralysis," as word began to spread up the sword and onto the body. "Quick, destroy him now. With this blade in me, I can't hold him for much longer." Chiyo grabbed two puppets and threw out the majority of the chakra thread. After racing to Sasori, these puppets grabbed two swords and stabbed him in the sides, piercing the black talisman and killing him. The mother and the father were the two puppets that kept him upright as he sagged. To Chiyo, it resembled the way Sasori used to embrace him as a child using his parents' puppets. Naruto was supported and removed from the sword by Kakashi and Gaara. Sakura and Hinata hurried over and began healing Naruto with medical jutsu. A few seconds later, "That's enough, Kurama will do the rest. You two have used too much chakra, let's just get back to Suna and rest. We'll tell you how Gaara is alive on the way," Naruto replied. Chiyo turned around and sealed the three puppets into a scroll as the others began to leave the cave. As she emerged from the cave, she exclaimed, "They're finally together." Unknown Cave Naruto looked at the two Akatsuki members and began, "Now." With a demonic tone, Naruto declared, "I'm gonna kill you." Deidara threw a small clay owl on the floor, and it grew larger. "Ha, you will have to catch me first." After leaping onto its back, Deidara used its tail to lift Gaara's body and took off for the opening. As the owl flew out of the opening and down the fissure, Naruto jumped and grabbed its foot, saying, "Oh hell no." Kakashi said, "Hinata, you pursue Naruto and support him." After giving a nod, Hinata turned around and followed Naruto and Deidara out of sight. Canyon Naruto was still holding the clay owl's foot tightly. He snarled, "I won't let you take Gaara." The blonde was starting to irritate Deidara. He retrieved a handful of clay from his pouch with his free hand and placed it in his palm. The clay spat back out after a few seconds, and he was holding several clay spiders. Deidara threw the clay spider at Naruto, saying, "See my art up close and personal." As Naruto was compelled to relinquish the bird's foot, he uttered the words, "Shit." Then he began to weave hand signals. When he clapped his hands together and yelled, "Wind style. Thunderclap." 1. A blast of wind headed directly for the spiders, blew them away from Naruto and Gaara in all directions, and then exploded. Naruto channeled chakra to his feet in order to withstand the impact as the force of the attack pushed him to the ground more quickly. He landed on one of the numerous logs made of wood that ran between the canyon's two sides. He waited for Hinata to catch up for roughly 20 seconds while he squatted there and stared at the back of Deidara and the bird. With Hinata at his side, he set out once more after she was on the same log as him. You can't use her elemental jutsu on him, Hina. Time. Why, Naruto.kun. As they caught up to him, Naruto remarked, you will trigger the bird. You said you had some training from Oba-chan, right? Yes, I can use a bit of medic and I can use some chakra to enhance my strength. Naruto explained the battle plan, saying, good, because we can't do anything to him while he is up there, so here is what I want you to do a euro. Hinata nodded after it was explained. Seeing that they were up to something, Deidara decided to give them no chance and proceeded to model a clay snake using more clay. He hurled the snake at Naruto and Hinata. It started to get bigger as it traveled through the air, eventually reaching the size of the snake that attacked Naruto during the Chunin exams. As the snake destroyed the log they were on, Naruto leapt to his right and Hinata leapt to her left, both of them adhering to the canyon walls. Then Naruto slammed his left hand against the wall while weaving hand signals. He called out, summoning jutsu. And a dark blue, two-tailed fox appeared in a puff of smoke. The fox bowed its head and then said, you summoned Naruto-sama. Naruto pointed to Deidara and said, yeah Toraku, I need you to follow that guy on the bird and if anything happens tell Kurama. As Toraku ran after Deidara, he said, yes Naruto-sama. When Naruto looked back at the snake, he saw Hinata avoiding its lunges each time. Naruto began to push chakra to his hand and create a Rasengan after noticing it was distracted. Then he leapt from the wall and headed directly for the snake. Naruto weaved hand signs for Hinata to see what he had planned. She screamed, fire style. Fire stream. As flames erupted from her mouth, but she directed them toward the logs surrounding the snake, leaving it with nowhere to go. She leapt back and adhered to the wall after finishing her task. After grinning at his Fianca copyrightee's behavior, Naruto resumed his flight. He thrust his arm out in front of him and began to pump more chakra into his attack and strengthen the outer layer. The Rasengan started to enlarge until it reached a diameter of 5 feet. He exclaimed, massive Rasengan, as the Rasengan struck the serpent's head and obliterated it entirely. With the now dead clay pile beside them, both landed back on the log. However, when the clay began to flash with light, they were both startled. Naruto thought quickly, positioned himself between Hinata and clay, and wrapped his cloak around her, saying, damn it, not enough time to get out of the way. After the clay exploded, Naruto took the brunt of the blast, which burned the skin on his back and the back of his cloak. It was, ARRRRR, he cried. When the explosion was over, Naruto got to his feet and lifted his cloak to show that Hinata was unharmed. He placed his index finger beneath her chin and lifted it to meet her eyes. Naruto questioned, are you hurt my Hime? She got to her feet while crying and examined Naruto's back to assess the damage. She used her medical jutsu to aid the already quick process, and in 30 seconds, his back was completely healed. What do you mean am I hurt? Naruto, you protected me and got hurt. Abruptly, they heard an explosion on their way back. Both Naruto and Hinata turned to face the source. Naruto remarked, looks like their fight is getting out of hand. Yeah, looks like it. Naruto put an arm around Hinata's waist and made backward hand signals for a summoning jutsu, saying, okay Hinata, hold on. Naruto roared, reverse summon, and slammed his left hand to the floor. Then, in a puff of smoke, they both vanished. The forest in a forest, they resurfaced. Neither of them saw Deidara when they looked around. Then Hinata searched with her Byakugan activated. He was 400 meters west of her. Hinata pointed toward Deidara and said, he is over there Naruto.kun. In that instant, Naruto came up with a plan and made his well-known hand gesture. Naruto exclaimed, Shadow Clone Jutsu. As 8 clones materialized behind him. You know the plan. He turned to Hinata after saying this to them. He approached her, put his hand on her cheek, and rubbed it with his thumb, saying, Hina. Hime, while I attack I need you to get Gaara and get away, one of my clones will go with you. He took a step closer and finally met her lips, kissing her for a few seconds before he parted ways and closed in on Deidara. As Naruto, Hinata, and the clones positioned themselves around Deidara, they noticed that he was sleeping beside his bird, with Gaara still tangled in its tail. He said, finally lost those brats. With 2 hands, 3 of the Naruto clones wielded enormous mallets. After sensing the chakra, Deidara leapt onto the bird and peered around. Then, with blinding speed, one of them rushed out of cover and swung his large mallet at Deidara, striking him in the chest with the words, "No." The clone yelled, striking Deidara directly across the clearing to another clone, who likewise ran out of the cover and struck him with his large mallet, saying, "Ru." The clone yelled, striking Deidara in a different direction of the clearing before a third clone swung from below his mallet, striking him with the words, "Tus." After that, Deidara heard several whirling sounds coming from 5 trees, and 4 more Naruto clones, including the original, leapt high above her with Rasengans each. The original yelled, "Hinata, get Gaara now." In response, Hinata took a clone and fled from her cover to the bird. After removing the clay tail feathers with a kunai, she released the clone Gaara, lifted him, placed him on his back, and the two fled the area. Now, as they all pushed their Rasengans into Deidara's chests while yelling, Naruto and his clones were returning to Earth in a helpless Deidara, hammering Rasengan barrage. Then, using the Rasengan's spiraling damage, the clones forced Deidara back to Earth. When they struck the Earth, a tiny crater was formed, kicking up dirt to obscure the vision of anyone who might be looking. All of the clones have scattered once the dirt has settled, leaving only the original. Naruto was shocked when he looked down and saw the damage. There was a clay clone on the floor in place of Deidara. Knowing what was going to happen next, Naruto then acted quickly. In order to clear Naruto, he made 4 clones, then they moved into position, activated their Kitsugan, and slammed both hands into the ground. The 4 clones yelled, "Sealing technique, cubed containment." As the black sealing writing moved in a line to the next clone, an orange force field appeared just as the clay bird and clay clone began to glow. A few seconds later, as the barrier was coming to an end, they exploded, sending a massive shockwave through the air. 1 mile west, the real Deidara was located about a mile to the west. He had escaped by switching to a clone while he was in midair, right before the clones and the original Naruto leapt out of the trees. He suffered severe injuries from the chakra mallets, breaking 4 ribs and breaking his skull. "I have to get out of here. I'm in no condition to fight the Kyuubi and Hyuga brats," Deidara replied. The body of a murky green figure emerged from the earth, revealing a half-white, half-black entity. The white half said, "Looks like you could use some help." Deidara turned to face the now named Zetsu and said, "Ah, Zetsu, my man, just who I need. Yes, get me out of here." Black Zetsu seized Deidara and sank back into the earth, saying, "Okay, then let's get out of here." Sight of explosion. As Naruto felt Deidara's chakra vanish along with an odd one, he exclaimed, "Damn, he's gone." Then, as his clones scattered, Naruto turned, revealing Hinata and Gaara's location. "Where is Hinata?" Hinata felt the explosion's shockwave and turned just as she had stopped running. Before Hinata destroyed the clones so Naruto would know where they were, she turned to the clone, who was placing Gaara on the ground. Following that, she began using a diagnostics jutsu on Gaara. Naruto showed up after a short while and glanced at Gaara and Hinata. Then Hinata looked at her fiancé. She said, "He is still alive, Naruto-kun." Naruto ran over to verify this for himself and discovered that it was accurate. Even though he's alive now, his life won't be long. Naruto reasoned, "There must be something I can do. There might be a way to save him, kid, but it will cost you a lot of chakra. Recovering completely from it will take a few days," Kurama stated. "Then let's get started. Where is Hinata?" "All right, kid, this is what you do. Put your hands on his stomach, where his seal is, and his forehead. Make sure you and your partner are a little distance apart. If she is touched by this, it will cause her pain," Kurama clarified. "Hina. I am going to need you to move out of the way for a second," Naruto replied. Hinata complied with his request and moved away from the pair. After that, Naruto placed one hand on Gaara's now exposed stomach and 2 fingers on his head. "Now what?" inquired Naruto. "Now, I'm going to my chakra into you and you will have to channel it into him. This process will take about 10 minutes and as I said will cause you tremendous strain," Kurama clarified. As Naruto began to channel the chakra Kurama was giving him, he thought, "I can handle it." Naruto gritted his teeth and said, "Hinata, please watch over me while I do this as I am helpless. It will take about 10 minutes. Hinata responded, "Of course Naruto-kun. Byakugan," as her eyes grew more intense and her veins showed. For 10 minutes, everything remained this way until Kurama gave Naruto the tail's worth of chakra, which Naruto then directed toward Gaara. Gaara leapt to her feet and surveyed the area after the chakra flow had ceased. The blonde was stopped by him. "Naruto?" Seeing his friend alive made Naruto smile broadly. "Hey Gaara. What happened? The last thing I remember is getting beat by that Deidara guy. The Akatsuki extracted Shukaku from the seal." "What? Then why am I not dead? I gave you a tail's worth of chakra that will slowly be converted to your own chakra. This means you be okay." Then Hinata approached the blonde and touched his shoulder. Hinata stated, "We have to go Naruto." Naruto turned to Gaara and stood up, holding out his hand, saying, "Right. Come on, we have to move fast." Gaara nodded, took Naruto's arms, and the boy lifted her up. As the three of them headed back to the cave, Naruto said, "Let's go." Unknown cave. When they emerged from the cave, they discovered that Sasori and 100 of his puppets were engaged in combat with Chiyo, Sakura, and Kakashi, and that the cave's roof had been destroyed. Naruto turned to face Gaara and remarked, 100 vs 6. Not good odds. Fancy giving us a beach?" With a sly smile, Gaara summoned the sand from the desert, which was about 1/2 of a mile away, and the sand in his gourd. The open-top cave was filled with sand. "Sand burial," exclaimed Gaara. All of Sasori's puppets were suddenly covered in sand. He concluded, "Sand mass coffin." The puppets were reduced to dust by all the sand. When Kakashi, Sakura, and Chiyo turned to face the cave's entrance in disbelief, they saw Naruto, Hinata, and a Euro. Most unexpectedly a Euro. Gaara standing there. Sasori exclaimed incredulously, "Impossible. You had the one. Tail extracted, you should be dead." The answer from Gaara was, "Yes, should be." Then Naruto whistled as he passed Gaara and entered what was left of the cave. Then he turned to Sasori and said, "You really did a number on this place." Naruto's eyes whirled into the Kitsugan as he began to run towards Sasori, saying, "You're going down." Sasori used his final scroll out of fear, and more arms began to emerge from behind him, aiming for Naruto. Naruto simply kept running, and when he got close, he began to leap from arm to arm as he approached. When he finally reached Sasori, he pushed him back against the wall by placing his hand in the center of his chest. Sealing technique. Lion closing roar. Naruto's hand released a white substance that covered Sasori's lower body and midsection, sealing him to the wall and creating a seal around him. When Kakashi and Chiyo saw that he had sealed Sakura, they relaxed and turned to face the three new arrivals. Kakashi remarked, "You arrived just in time. Those puppets were hard work." Naruto saw something move close to Sakura as he made his way back to the three. When he saw what it was, he rushed and shoved her aside, only to have the sword stab him in the stomach. The attacker's hood was quickly removed to reveal Sasori. Sakura, Kakashi, and Chiyo noticed the black talisman missing and turned back to see it in this Sasori's chest. Everyone looked in shock as they looked at the puppet sealed on the wall. Naruto reached for the sword's blade. He exclaimed, "Sealing technique. Paralysis," as word began to spread up the sword and onto the body. "Quick, destroy him now with this blade in me. I can't hold him for much longer." Chiyo grabbed two puppets and threw out the majority of the chakra thread. After racing to Sasori, these puppets grabbed two swords and stabbed him in the sides, piercing the black talisman and killing him. The mother and the father were the two puppets that kept him upright as he sagged. To Chiyo, it resembled the way Sasori used to embrace him as a child using his parents' puppets. Naruto was supported and removed from the sword by Kakashi and Gaara. Sakura and Hinata hurried over and began healing Naruto with medical jutsu. A few seconds later, "That's enough, Kurama will do the rest. You two have used too much chakra, let's just get back to Suna and rest. We'll tell you how Gaara is alive on the way," Naruto replied. Chiyo turned around and sealed the three puppets into a scroll as the others began to leave the cave. As she emerged from the cave, she exclaimed, "They're finally together." The unknown cave's exterior, read on. Team Guy was coming as the group had just stepped outside. They had a slightly worn appearance. Naruto inquired, "So you survived?" Yashar flames of youth were so strong they retreated, Guy yelled. With a drop of perspiration, Naruto said, Good." Naruto began, "Oh by the way a euro." As everyone turned to stare at him. Before he passed out, Naruto said, "A euro, can someone catch me?" With a swift motion, Kakashi placed Naruto on his back. "We have to get back to Suna so we can see if he is okay," Kakashi stated. With a collective nod, they headed towards Suna. Suna, the group of rescuers, was racing across the desert. Naruto regained consciousness and explained that his body needed to adjust a little because he was losing a tail's worth of chakra so quickly. The team was unable to distinguish a black mass in front of Suna, but they could see it on the horizon. As they approached, they noticed that there were both civilians and Suna shinobi in the crowd. They cheered when they saw the rescue team and Gaara alive and well, and 3 people, a euro, 2 women and a mana euro, ran away from the crowd. Tamari and Matsuri were the 2 women, and Kankuro was the man. Matsuri arrived at the team first, embraced Gaara, and sobbed into his chest. She cried, "Gaara-kun, you are okay?" "Yes Matsuri, I am fine." Then Matsuri stepped out of his hug and gave him a face slap. You big jerk, you could have died. Gaara grinned. This led to a rare phenomenon. Crap. Runny smiled. Naruto exclaimed, laughing as he hid behind Hinata. The group as a whole started laughing at this. Matsuri blushed as Gaara turned back to her and planted a kiss on her cheek. I'm sorry, Matsuri. Then Matsuri gave him another hug. It's okay. When Tamari and Kankuro saw their youngest brother falling in love, they both grinned. Following that, Matsuri held Gaara's arm as they all walked back. Gaara turned to face Naruto as he tapped his other shoulder. Naruto inquired, so you have got a girlfriend? Gaara grinned as he recalled training Matsuri and having to save her from the 4 celestial symbol men, which is when he realized how much she meant to him and how much he felt for her. Yes, she was my apprentice and one of the first people in the village to not judge me for Shukaku. Then he emerged from his recollections and turned to face Hinata and Naruto. Gaara inquired, what about you and Miss Hyuga? Hinata moved closer to Naruto's embrace as he remarked, similar to you and Matsuri. Hinata here never judged me for Kurama and we're actually engaged. Turns out our parents were good friends and married us off to each other while our mother was pregnant with us. They had arrived at a gathering where people were rejoicing over the return of their Kage and expressing gratitude to the rescue team for bringing Gaara back to them during this conversation. Following the rescue team's successful passage through the crowd, a celebration festival was scheduled for that evening. The Konoha Nin accepted Gaara's invitation to stay for the celebration. Yu was called by Naruto. She said, Hey Naruto. What can I do for you? Then Naruto gave her a scroll. Can you get this to Oba-chan for me? Once you are done you can come back here and enjoy the festival. Yu swiftly grabbed the scroll and vanished at the mention of a festival. The office of Tsunade. While 2 of Tsunade's shadow clones completed her paperwork, she was lounging on her couch and sipping tea. Life is wonderful. My job has become 100 times easier, and I have a wonderful grandson and a loving boyfriend. Yes, I'm doing fine. Then a puff of smoke appeared in the center of Tsunade's office, interrupting her thoughts. Yu emerged from the smoke. Yu put the scroll on the little table in front of the couch and said, Hokage. Sama, I have a scroll sent from Naruto. Reaching for the scroll, Tsunade said, Thank you Yu. After giving a nod, Yu vanished. Tsunade read the scroll after picking it up. Tsunade put the scroll back on the table and returned to her tea and thoughts. So Gaara is alive and well and Sasori of the Red Sand is dead. They also will be staying at Suna for the night and setting out in the morning. Well, at least I know the mission was a success. Suna. The following day, Naruto had a mild headache when he woke up in his hotel room. Recalling the night before, he grinned. A flashback at the festival last night, Suna was ecstatic and celebrating. They set up vendors and stalls, shows and games. Hinata and Naruto agreed to go on a date. They only had their ninja clothes on because they couldn't get dressed up because they were on a mission, but that didn't lessen the romance and fun of the date. After a few games, Naruto gave Hinata a plush orange fox, which she loved because it made her think of him. She kept the fact that she could finally cuddle up to something Naruto related at night from him, though. They also stayed up late drinking sake and gazing at the stars while conversing at the summit of the Kage Tower. Final flashback. Naruto said to no one as he showered and changed into his clothes, We're heading back today. Suna front gate. The Sand siblings, Matsuri and Chiyo, were the Konoha Nin standing at the gate. Naruto said, Well, take care Gaara. Tilting his head past Gaara, Naruto said, Make sure he stays out of trouble, Matsuri. Causing Matsuri to laugh and flush. She said, I will Naruto. Then Naruto turned back to face Gaara and held out his hand. Gaara smirked as she took Naruto's hand in a handshake after glancing at the hand and then back up at his face. Then the two hands began to be surrounded by sand particles that had risen from the desert floor. The entire group was drawn to it and was in awe of it, but they were even more astounded when a wind carried some leaves and they began to do the same with the sand. It seemed to represent the friendship between Naruto and Gaara as well as the union of the leaf and the sand. Naruto chuckled as he gazed down at the phenomenon. Looks like my other bloodline has full awakened, so I will have to train even harder now. About 30 seconds later, they let go of each other's hands, and the leaves and sand trailed behind them. As I say, stay safe Gaara, and if you need anything, just put chakra into that seal I have you and I'll be there as soon as I can. Gaara nodded in response. The Konoha Nin then departed Suna and made their way home. Unknown Cave 2 Akatsuki members were seen moving through the devastation that had once been the cave. One was Zetsu, and the other was unidentified but wore a mask with swirls of orange. They appeared to be searching for something. A few minutes later, the unidentified participant picked up Sasori's purple Akatsuki ring. Black Zetsu remarked, Looks like you will have to come partly out of the shadows now. Yes, it looks like I will. Which tailed beast has Pain decided to go for now? The three-tailed turtle, as it doesn't have a Jincha, Riki, since he was killed by Meitarumi, the fifth Mizukage. Good. The river country the sun had set, and Naruto, Hinata, Kakashi, and Sakura were running through the trees of the land of rivers, searching for a good spot to spend the night. To complete their mission, Team Guy had traveled to the land of Earth. With her Byakugan active, Hinata reported, Kakashi. Sensei, there is a clearing about 600 meters ahead. It is a good place to set up camp. As the teens nodded in agreement, Kakashi gave the order, saying, Good, okay, once we reach the clearing. Naruto, you and some clones go and collect some firewood. Sakura, collect some water from a nearby river. Hinata, I want you to use your Byakugan to search the area for any unknown assailants, and I will set up the camp. They reached the clearing in a minute. After they were all there, Naruto created 3 clones and a tiger seal by faking their appearance. Following the creation of the clones, each one departed in a different direction to gather the firewood, as did the original. Sakura looked over at Hinata. Sakura inquired, Hinata, where is the nearest river? After scanning the area for a few seconds, Hinata turned back to Sakura. Hinata pointed to the east and replied, The closest river to us is east of here about 1 mile. Sakura nodded before leaping in that direction and making her way to the river while carrying the water canteen. After that, Hinata kept looking around while Kakashi started preparing the camp. He made a fire pit and opened a cooking pot before erecting his tent. 20 minutes later, Sakura, Naruto, and his clones returned to the camp with the firewood and water. Naruto stepped back and placed some of the firewood in the shape of a teepee in the fire pit. He began weaving a sign with his hands. Fire style. Flaming palm. The campfire was ignited by a tiny stream of fire that emerged from Naruto's hand. Following the ignition of the flame, Kakashi took out some food, filled the canteen Sakura, and brought the water to a boil. Kakashi added the food to cook after the water boiled. Sat down to eat after it was cooked. Following their completion, they simply went about their own business. Kakashi had his nose in the notorious orange book. Sakura was checking her weapon supply. Hinata was sitting next to Naruto, with her head resting on his shoulder as she watched him manipulate leaves and model various animals. An hour later, Kakashi got up and turned to face the group. With another nod from the teenagers, Kakashi said, Okay, time for bed. I will take the first watch of the night for 2 hours, then Sakura for 2 hours, the Hinata for 2 hours, and finally Naruto for the last 2 hours. After that, the teenagers got up and retired to their individual tents for the night, only to be roused for their shift. Kakashi continued to read his orange book while sitting outside the camp, where he could watch for anything unusual. 6 hours later, after finishing her shift, Hinata was flushed as she unzipped Naruto's tent. Her blushing worsened when she noticed Naruto dozing off in just his boxers. After fortifying herself, she entered the tent and shocked Naruto's shoulder. Naruto was shocked several times before waking up and seeing Hinata. Sitting up and wiping the sleep from his eyes, Naruto said, Morning Hina, Hime. As Naruto stretched and displayed the results of his training and hard work, Hinata's blush and stutter worsened. G. Good M. Morning and Naruto.kun. After catching a glimpse of her, Naruto made the decision to enjoy himself. Naruto pretended to be embarrassed as he said, Gee, Hina. Hime, I never knew you were a pervert. Kami. I feel so embarrassed with you looking at me like a piece of meat. N.Noi. Hinata stood up, fainting before she could finish her sentence. After giggling at the sight, Naruto got up and placed Hinata on his makeshift bed. He watched as Hinata clung closer to the pillow, her lips forming a smile as she inhaled the pillow's scent. As he dressed and put on his camo cloak, Naruto thought to himself, she is so beautiful. He then left the tent, sat on a boulder by the fire, and gazed at the stars. Through the mental link, Kurama said urgently, Kit, I need to talk to you. Get in here. 1 second, Naruto said, feigning the appearance of 8 clones and the tiger seal. After Naruto gave the order, the clones nodded, took their places, and huddled into the surroundings. I need you lot to take a point on the compass and watch over the camp. If anything is out of the ordinary, dispel yourself straight away. Naruto then allowed himself to enter his Mindscape while sitting in the lotus position. The Mindscape of Naruto's the fox was lying down in a clearing of a lush, green forest when Naruto opened his eyes. Naruto glanced around a little. After saying, I see you had decided to stay in my wood-style realm. A chair appeared out of the floor, and Naruto sat down, leaning in and facing Kurama. Of course, out of your 6 realms this is the most peaceful, replied Kurama. So I'm guessing you like life inside my mind, little seal. Yes. But that's beside the point of why I told you to come. I have something to tell you about this whole crisis that is happening. We know what is happening, though. The Akatsuki and a person claiming to be Madara are capturing and sealing all 9 of the Biju to, what we think, revive the Jubi for some reason. Yes, that is true, but there is something more. Okay, what? I have memories from back when I was part of the Shinju, which shouldn't be possible. But anyway, it has to do with the Jubi, 2 legendary heroes and the Zero Tails. Naruto became more interested upon hearing the last name because he immediately thought of the fight between the Beast and the Otsutsuki brothers when he heard Jubi and 2 legendary heroes. What does the Zero Tails have to do with anything? I thought it wasn't a real Biju? I thought it wasn't until you and Sasuke destroyed the temple. I started to think of why it thought it was a Biju. But when I felt the energy of the Gedo statue in that cave, my memories unlocked. Okay, go on. Okay, you know that the Shinju was the first thing to have chakra and it let Kage Otsutsuki eat the fruit. But tried to kill father and uncle by transforming into the Jubi. Naruto nodded to this information. Well, what I remember is that Shinju was not the first and full form. It had a full creature form. Yeah, the Jubi. No, the Jubi is not complete either. You see, the Shinju was created when this beast was sealed away, and so was the Zero Tails. This caused Naruto's eyes to widen. What? Yes, the Zero Tails was a part of it, but it doesn't remember and just fed off the negative emotions of humans and tried to gain power. The beast that was the full form was called the Ether. It was defeated by a couple who had a mystic power. They sacrificed themselves to seal the Ether as the Shinju and wipe the memory of the Zero Tails so it wouldn't try to merge with it again. It took Naruto around 30 seconds to process this information. When he did, he turned to face Kurama. Okay, that is something new, but how does this affect us? Sasuke and I destroyed the Zero Tails when we brought down the temple. Yes, you may have, but remember, a Biju can reform after a while and there is the chance it didn't die, and I think when it came in contact with me its memories started to unlock as I was part of its missing piece. Fuck, you're right. This is bad. We have to warn the other Biju about this, but I don't know where they all are. I know Ki, Matabi are in Kumogakure and Chame is in Takigakure. Shukaku is sealed. Isobu won't reform for a while yet since the Mizukage was killed. Its son Goku, Kakuo and Seiken I haven't heard about from the Ranger Corps. Naruto replied, and then turned to Kurama. Can you sense them? No, I could only sense Shukaku because of the extraction and because he allowed me to. Son, Kakuo and Seiken are blocking any of us from finding them. Kurama responded by lowering his head. Oh, okay. Well, once I get back I will ask Oba-chan if I can go and warn Ki, Matabi and Chame. Naruto replied. As he received the memories from the 8 clones, his eyes suddenly widened. Looks like the rest are awake, so I have to go. Naruto turned around when Kurama yelled, "Wait, Kit. Yeah? You still going to do that thing?" Kurama watched with a smile on his face as Naruto said, "Yeah, I'll do it before we leave to warn the others." Naruto then disappeared from his mindscape. Before putting his head back to sleep, Kurama said, "Thank you, Kit." Camp location. When Naruto opened his eyes, he saw Hinata, Sakura, and Kakashi eating. He rose, leapt from the rock, and made his way to the camp. After arriving, he took a seat beside Hinata and whispered while leaning into her ear, "I hope you enjoyed the show and the bed." Hinata turned away from Naruto and flashed 50 shades of red in response. He simply laughed and continued to eat. The team packed up the camp after eating. Naruto inquired, "Kakashi Sensei, how long till we get home?" "Why?" Kakashi inquired, "We should be home about mid-afternoon." Naruto answered, "I just want to get home as fast as I can." When Kakashi realized he wouldn't receive a suitable response, he abandoned the conversation, and the group immediately headed toward Konoha. The north gate of Konoha's Shino, Akamaru, and Kiba were on guard duty for the day, and it was mid-afternoon. As he repeatedly banged his head against the desk, Kiba grumbled, "I'm so bored." Akamaru barked in agreement. Shino answered, "Every Chunin has to do this, Kiba." "I know, doesn't mean I have to like it." Kakashi, Naruto, Hinata, and Sakura arrived at the gate as Kiba was finishing his sentence. Waving, Naruto said, "Hey guys." Kiba answered, "Yo Naruto, Hinata, Sakura, and Kakashi. Sensei." Shino simply nodded his head. The group hurried to Tsunade's office after signing in. The office of Tsunade's having shadow clones handle all of her Hokage paperwork while she sat on the couch sipping tea or sake was what Tsunade considered to be the best job in the world. It shows how brilliant my grandson is to have shadow clones handle the paperwork. A knock on the door made her think, if I could, I would promote him just for that. With a groan, she rose and took a seat behind her desk. "Come in," she exclaimed. The door opened in response, revealing Sakura, Hinata, Naruto, Kakashi, and Shizune. Kakashi stated, "Rescue team reporting in." "Good. I have already got your written report, but I would like to hear it from you and your opinion on the mission," Tsunade responded. For the time being, Naruto omitted the section about the talk with Kurama from the team's recitation of the mission to Tsunade and the festival. Then Naruto removed a scroll, placed it on the desk, and opened it to uncover a storage seal. He touched and then let go of the storage seal. Tsunade's thought the release was the most amazing thing she had ever seen. 50 bottles of Suna sake, the finest sake on the continent, were opened. "I thought I would get you these for all the birthdays I have missed over the years and because I got given them, but I'm not too keen on it," Naruto replied. In response, Tsunade leapt from her chair and gave Naruto a bone-crushing embrace. "I have the best grandson. He makes my work easy and gets me the best sake in the continent, which will last me a year." Naruto produced an order booklet and said, "Also here." Tsunade accepted it, perplexed. "That is the order booklet for the place that makes the sake you have a lifetime's supply," Naruto told her. She was simply stunned by this, and then she had a thought. Tsunade went into her drawer, took out a Chunin vest, and threw it at Naruto, who caught it. "I was going to give you this if Kakashi, Sakura, and Hinata gave me a positive review of you on this mission, but screw it. You are now a Chunin of Konoha for giving me this booklet, the sake, and getting a good field report," Tsunade grinned. Naruto flashed the biggest smile before it vanished. He questioned, "I don't have to wear this, do I?" Tsunade answered bewilderedly, "No, only in war." He laughed and said, "Good, as I wouldn't want to mess up my sexy attire." However, everyone else rolled their eyes. After glancing at each of them, Naruto turned back to Tsunade and spoke, "You bunch of haters." The office of Tsunade's taking the Chunin vest, Naruto gave it to Hinata. He activated his Kitsugan and took out a scroll. He placed his hand on the scroll and said, "Storage seal." The seal materialized on the scroll. Naruto extended his hand and said, "Could I have the vest, Hina? Hime?" He put on the vest that Hinata had given him, activated it, and the seal vanished. Tsunade grinned and said, "Okay, you're fired. Let me start working now." After nodding, Kakashi, Sakura, and Hinata turned to go, but when Naruto took hold of Hinata's arm, she was stopped. She faced Naruto again. Naruto said, "Actually, Oba-chan, I have a request." "And what would that be?" "With the Akatsuki on the hunt for the Biju, I would like to travel to Kumogakure and to Kigakure to warn the Jincha, Riki, about this. But can you tell the Anbu guard to go and get Odo-san, as there is something else?" Naruto said in a serious voice. Tsunade complied after noticing the tone and realizing how important it was. As Tsunade sensed the 4 Anbu depart, she gave the order, "Anbu, go and get Jiraiya." About 10 minutes later, Jiraiya entered through the window. "You needed something, Nade, Hime." Tsunade pointed to her grandson and said, "No, Naru-kun wanted you." Hinata thought, Naru-kun, I like that. Tsunade said, "Okay Naru-kun, what did you want to say?" After that, Naruto shared what Kurama had told him with Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Hinata. It would be an understatement to say they were shocked. They had recently discovered that there was a more terrible calamity than the 10 Tails and that the legend of the Sage of the 6 Paths was real. "So you want to go to tell the other Jincha, Riki, about this?" Tsunade responded. "Yeah, I want Odo-san to have his spy network to keep an eye out for any information about the 0 Tails, 3 Tails, 4 Tails, 5 Tails or 6 Tails. I will inform the Ranger Corps and they will help." Tsunade wrote down the mission in 2 letters, one for the Raikage and one for Takigakure's leader Shibuki, and gave them to Naruto, saying, "Okay Naru-kun, I will make this a diplomatic mission so you can enter Kumogakure and Takigakure." To the teen's surprise, Naruto said, "Thanks, can I take Hinata with me?" "Why?" inquired Tsunade. "Because she has had diplomatic training with being the Hyuga heiress, also I want to spend more time with her." According to Tsunade, "Fine, okay. Go." Before Naruto turned around, he and Hinata nodded and left the office. Both of them nodded when Naruto said, "Oh, can you two meet me and Hinata here at 10 tonight?" When Tsunade grabbed the back of Jiraiya's shirt, he stopped him in his tracks. "Well, I going, I'll see you tonight." She handed him a bottle of Suna sake and said, "Come on, have a drink with me." Jiraiya simply chuckled, took the bottle, and sat with Tsunade on the couch. She put her head on his shoulder and drank as they started talking. Beyond the Hokage Tower, Hinata became interested after Naruto and she had just left the Hokage Tower. Naru.kun, what is happening tonight? It's a surprise. I have to go and do something now, but so you want to go get some ramen later? Before leaving for home, Hinata leaned in to give Naruto a kiss and said, of course I would. After momentarily losing consciousness, Naruto grinned and turned to walk in the opposite direction. Naruto thought, well, before we start this thing, we need to gather something. I will never be able to repay the debt you are about to do, Kurama stated. Hey, what do friends do? The Konoha Gate. When Naruto approached the Konoha Gate, he saw Kiba, Akamaru, and Shino on duty once more. He approached them. Hey guys, I have to run an errand outside the village. I will be back in a couple of hours, Naruto replied. Kiba smiled as he said, what are you talking about, Naruto? You can leave the village since you are still a genin. As he left the village without looking back and leapt into the tree branches, Naruto remarked, but that's the thing, I made Chunin now because of the last mission I was on. Temple of Uzumaki. He reached a demolished Uzumaki clan temple after an hour of travel. Because of the Uzumaki spiral sign above the door, he was certain that this was the temple. Naruto told himself, finally found the place. He entered the temple and proceeded down the hallway until he reached two enormous wooden doors. There were stairs leading down when he pushed open the doors. Naruto asked himself, why is everything important always in the basement of the abandoned building? He proceeded to descend the stairs and proceed down another hallway until he reached a small room. There were 27 masks with a demonic appearance on the wall opposite Naruto. Naruto approached the wall and examined each one. Which one is it, Kurama? As he allowed Kurama to take control of his eyes and cause them to turn red with slits, Naruto asked. Then, after a few seconds, he examined each mask. As Naruto's eyes returned to their cerulean blue hue, he responded, the seventh from the left on the top row, Kit. Naruto gave a nod. Then he made a few hand gestures. He exclaimed, wind style. Breezing's pull. As the wind around him was controlled to carry the appropriate mask to Naruto. Using his Kitsugan, Naruto placed explosive seals throughout the room and said, okay, now that we have the mask, all we need are the others. He then left the temple. After a few meters outside, he triggered the explosive seals, causing the entire temple to explode. Kurama questioned, why did you destroy it? The first is that, as the head of Uzumaki, I own this land and am free to do as I please. As he leapt from tree to tree, Naruto answered, and second because I have a feeling other people know about this and may be able to bring them back and use them for their own purposes. Okay. Office of Tsunade's, 10 p.m., €. In her office, Tsunade and Jiraiya waited for Naruto and Hinata to join them for the activity Naruto had requested of them. After chatting and eating at Ichiraku Ramen, Naruto and Hinata entered the room at that precise moment. Jiraiya inquired, okay, so what is this meeting for Naruto? Hinata, Tsunade, and Jiraiya followed Naruto as he said, I'll explain once we get to where we need to be, follow me. Senju. Uzumaki Compound 2 of Naruto's shadow clones were waiting for them when Naruto, Hinata, Tsunade, and Jiraiya entered the compound's basement. One was standing in front of the kneeling clone wearing the mask Naruto had taken from the temple, while the other was kneeling on a cushion in the middle of the room. Jiraiya said, Naruto, what the hell is going on here? And Naruto turned to face the other people. Okay. So I promised Kurama that I would make High whole again. So I'm going to use a forgotten technique of the Uzumaki which lets me summon Shinigami and I can recover something that is in his stomach. Naruto clarified. Wait, I thought you need to give all the chakra you have into the Shinigami? Replied Tsunade. Naruto turned back to the clones, and the other three remained behind him. That's right, but that's why I'm using a clone. It has some of my chakra and if separate from me. So now I need to get on with this. Okay, do it. A massive wind began to blow from behind him as the clone wearing the mask nodded and began to channel chakra into the mask. To keep them in place, Naruto, his clone, and the others directed chakra toward their feet. The Shinigami vanished behind the clone at that point. Then, as the same wound developed on the clone's stomach, the clone willed the Shinigami to remove the knife from its mouth and slit open his stomach. One blue soul emerged from the Shinigami's wound and began to fly throughout the room. The Shinigami vanishes as the mask wearing clone dispels itself. The soul obeyed Naruto's command to enter the kneeling clone and entered it. After that, Naruto activated his Kitsugan and ran to the clone. He yelled, searching soul seal, and touched the clone's forehead. Naruto leapt back as the clone began to transform and take shape as soon as the seal was activated. Minato Senju stood where the clone had been. Naruto grinned and said, Hey 2.san. Minato grinned and said, "Naruto, it's good to see you again." He then turned to face his son. After saying, "Hello again, Ka-san and Tu-san." To the two senin, he turned to Hinata. "So you are Hinata Hyuga, my son's fiancé copyrightee." Hinata stumbled, bowing. "Hi sir." Minato approached her, put a hand on her shoulder, and laughed. "No need for the sir, I'm your soon-to-be father.in.law, so call me Tu-san," he replied. Hinata said, "Hi Tu-san." Minato then looked at Jiraiya and Tsunade. "Hello, I know all about what happened," Minato said, and Tsunade pulled him into a bone-crushing embrace while sobbing into his shoulder and apologizing over and over. Minato smiled and shed a single tear as she said, "It's okay, I still love you." Naruto interrupted Minato, Tsunade, and Jiraiya after they had been chatting for a few minutes. "Tu-san, the clone's chakra won't last much longer, so I need Kuramasa's other half." Minato nodded as he turned to face his son. As he said goodbye, he shook Jiraiya's hand, gave Hinata a pat on the head, and kissed Tsunade on the cheek. Then he approached his son. Naruto nodded with his Kitsugan as Minato said, "Okay, let's do this." On his left hand, Minato wrote a seal with ink, and on his right, Naruto made one. They held them up to one another. As Kurama absorbed the orange chakra and felt both Naruto and himself grow stronger, it began to flow from Minato into Naruto. The chakra ceased after a minute, and both of them knelt down. "Well, that's it Naruto, I have to go." "You still have some of my chakra seal, right?" replied Minato. "Yeah." Then, as his body began to deteriorate, Minato stood up and faced his parent. Minato fading away, "I will always love you, never forget that." Tsunade put her arm around Jiraiya and said, "We will always love you Mina-kun." Naruto left the basement with the three of them. Naruto put his ear to Hinata's. To Hinata's embarrassment, Naruto proposed, "You know Hinata, it is already late and I don't want you walking home this late, so why don't you stay here?" Hinata struggled to say, "NNR. Naru. Kun what? What did daughter you say?" saying. Hinata merely nodded as Naruto whispered, "I'll tell you in the bedroom." Then he looked at Jiraiya and Tsunade. As Naruto and Hinata made their way deeper into the house, Naruto remarked, "I'll see you too when I see you." As they left the compound, Jiraiya laughed when Tsunade said, "Ah, young love." After that, Naruto and Hinata entered Naruto's room. Naruto and Hinata entered. However, a silencing seal on the door was activated when the doors closed. Senju. Uzumaki compound. The sun began to peek through the window's curtains. Naruto began to stir when the light struck him. When he opened his eyes and looked around the room, he was confused to see that not only were there his clothes all over the place, but there were also clothes belonging to women. What the devil? Whose garments are those? Before realization struck him like a ton of bricks and he recalled what had happened the night before, Naruto pondered. He noticed his fiancé copyrightee's dark blue hair using his chest as a pillow and looked down as he felt the additional weight on his chest. He began stroking her hair with his right hand after moving it up to the top of her head. He put his hand back on the mattress after a few minutes, but Hinata grabbed it before it could reach the mattress and put it back on her head. Hinata spoke into his chest, "Keep going." Naruto laughed and said, "Ha, so you are awake." "Yeah, I've been awake since you started to stroke my hair." "So how are you after last night?" Sigh, "Wonderful. Good. But you know we need to get up now?" Playfully striking Naruto in the chest, Hinata sighed, No, we don't need to get up." Hinata giggled and kept hitting him playfully as Naruto sat up, picked her up, and spun her around, saying, "Come on Haim. We need to get to Kumo." With a playful grumble, she said, "Put me down Naru-kun." Naruto put her down on her feet after complying with her request. They both became aware that they were still nude at that point. Hinata covered herself with her hands as she flushed. Hinata said, "Please don't look Naru-kun." Naruto simply approached her, moved her hands, put his arms around her waist, and planted a kiss on her lips. When they broke off their kiss, he said, "You don't have to hide yourself from me, Haim. I love you, all of you." Hinata went to her clothes and took out a scroll, saying, "I love you too, so let's get ready." There was a storage seal on the scroll. A fresh outfit was on the scroll once it was released. Naruto put on some boxers and said, "You can use the shower first, Haim." As he left the room, he concluded, "I'll start breakfast." As Hinata entered the bathroom to take a shower, she simply grinned. Half an hour later, though the jacket was more form-fitting, Hinata entered the kitchen wearing clean clothes. As he arranged 2 plates of bacon, eggs, sausages, and beans, Naruto declared, "Breakfast is served." As Naruto sat down and they began to eat, Hinata remarked, "This looks amazing, Naru-kun." After finishing first, Naruto got up, picked up his plate, and placed it in the sink. Then he turned back to Hinata and worked to the door. "Could you please wash the plates while I'm in the shower?" asked Naruto. Hinata got up after finishing her breakfast. Naruto returned to his bedroom to retrieve his clothes and jumped into the shower, but Hinata said, "Okay, don't be too long." She then moved to the sink and began washing up. After 20 minutes Lilia and Takahiro were seated on the couch in the living room, watching Hinata play with Seta when Naruto entered. "Seta, I need to take Hinata now, we have a mission," Naruto replied. To the laughter of Hinata, Lilia, and Takahiro, Seta hugged Hinata and said, "No, I'm playing with Hinata. You can't take me, meanie." Hinata glanced down at the red-headed 2-year-old. Hinata said, "I'm sorry, Seta, but I have to go." Seta used her soul method, the notorious puppy dog eyes jutsu, while staring up at Hinata. When Naruto saw this, he realized they were in a bad position. "Seta, if you let Hinata go I will summon Kao and let her stay for as long as you like." Seta turned to Naruto and gave him a nod in response. Seta said, "Okay Hinata for Kao." As he called forth Kao, Naruto simply shook his head and laughed. "Kao, you are allowed to stay as long as you want. I have a hostage situation, I need my fiancé copyright from the little red devil. I'm trading you for her." Naruto clarified. When Kao nodded and approached the two girls, Seta released Hinata. Hinata approached Naruto and gave him a hug. Hinata pretended to be upset as she said, "I was so scared, Naruto. She tortured me with laughter." After the entire family laughed, Naruto went on with the play, saying, "It's okay Hina. Hime. She can't hurt you anymore." Naruto concluded as they left the room, "Okay, we are going on a mission, don't know how long we will be." The Konoha Gate, the Eternal Gate guards were playing shogi at their regular station. Azumo declared triumphantly, "Yes, that's 8 games to me, 7 to you. Best 11 out of 20. Said Katetsu. As Azumo rearranged the shogi board, he remarked, "Okay, it's not like we have anything better to do." As Katetsu was about to attack, the mission scrolls were handed to them by Naruto and Hinata. "We are going to Kumogakure to talk about information, then to Takigakure to talk about information," Naruto stated. Azumo simply reviewed the scroll to be sure. "Okay, everything seems in order. Be careful." Naruto gave a nod, and the two departed the Kumogakure gate. Hinata and Naruto had been on the road for a little more than a week. In order to avoid going over the ocean, which would be a bad idea given how long it would take, they had to pass through the land of hot water and the land of frost. They encountered the occasional bandit along the route, which is typical when traveling, but they handled them with ease and they had no real issues. At the entrance to the mountain range where Kumogakure was based, Naruto and Hinata were now standing. Built in and around the mountains, the village had clouds moving through it. The largest and tallest mountain in the range stood in the middle of the village, and a big, blue building that served as the Raikage's office surrounded it. Observing the village, Hinata said, "Kumogakure looking so different to Konoha." While approaching the gate post, Naruto remarked, "Yeah, I'm not too fond of this place, but the Jinsha, Riki need to be warned." Hinata gazed worriedly and perplexedly at her fiancé copyright's back. There were 2 Kumo nin seated at the booth. One was a dark-skinned woman with long purple hair. Her eyes were silver. The second was a man with blonde hair and fair skin. He had black rings around his blue eyes. They were both dressed in the traditional Kumo uniform. They appeared to be conversing, but when they noticed Naruto and Hinata, they stopped. They tensed a little when they saw the Konoha headbands. Naruto handed the girl the scroll and she read it, saying, "We are here on a mission from the Godem Hokage to talk to the Yondaime Raikage." Her eyes narrowed when she saw the blonde's name, and she then showed the blonde the scroll. He activated a communicate seal after seeing the name. Samui, Karui come to the gate. 2 people's bodies abruptly flickered to the booth. One had dark skin, red hair, and golden eyes, while the other was fair-skinned, blonde, and blue-eyed. The booth caught the fair-skinned one's attention. "What, Atsui?" The woman received the scroll from the now-named Atsui. "Read this, Samui." After reading the scroll until she reached the blonde's name, Samui's eyes widened and she turned to face Naruto. "Sorry, let them sign in Karui and I will take them to Raikage. Sama." Naruto and Hinata signed in after the purple-haired girl, Sari, nodded and pushed the book to them. Then they went to the Raikage's office after the 2 Kumo nin. Karui had her hands poised to draw her sword, and Samui was prepared to throw a jutsu the entire time. Raikage's workspace Mabui is a woman with green eyes and dark skin. She was dressed in a skirt, sandals, and a long, sleeved, high-collared dress shirt. As she passed through the door of the Raikage's office, she was laden with papers. As she entered, she noticed a tall, dark-skinned, muscular man with a beard, a small mustache, white combed back hair, and enormous gold bangle bracelets on his wrists ready to leap out of one of the office's windows. "Hey, the Raikage is here." To the man, she sternly said, "Don't even think about it." When he heard the voice, he turned around and stopped. "Why?" "Because there is paperwork here to look through and Samui and Karui are bring 2 Konoha in here as they need to talk to you. One of them is someone you want to see." "Oh, and who would that be?" Mabui was about to respond when someone knocked on the door. She went to the door and said, "This is them now." Aside and sat behind his desk. But as soon as he saw who had entered, he immediately got back up. He yelled at Naruto, "What the fuck are you doing here? You are not welcome in Kumogakure." This made Naruto a little angry, but he controlled it. Naruto growled a little and said, "I'm here to make sure your Jincha, Riki stay alive and give them information that their tenants might like to know. You think I am going to let you anywhere near my adoptive brother and sister? You have another thing coming. I don't trust you after what your father did." "Oh yeah, the feeling is mutual." "What are you talking about? My father did nothing to you or your family." "As a matter of fact, he did. He ordered 3 Kumo shinobi to kidnap my mother to experiment with her Uzumaki chakra. Also, I don't take lightly to the kidnapping of my fiancé copyrightee." This surprised him because, although he was aware of the mission, he was unaware that the girl they had attempted to abduct would go on to become Minato Senju's wife, the mother of Naruto Uzumaki. Senju, and the heiress from Hyuga, who was engaged to the blonde. He calmed down and went back to his seat after hearing this because he realized they were both in the same boat. "Okay. I am prepared to bring in B and Yugito, but what you have to tell them will be Sadi in front of me." Pointing to Samui, Karui, and Mabui, he stated, "I'm okay with that, but I want those 3 to leave." To the surprise of A, Samui, Karui, Mabui, the 2 Junin, B, and Yugito, but not of Hinata, who could see them with her Byakugan, Naruto went on calmly, and the 2 Junin level nin that are hiding to leave, but B and Yugito can stay. On either side of Naruto were B and Yugito. Yugito is on his right, her long nails on Naruto's throat, while B is on his left, holding a sword to his heart. Naruto, however, remained composed and unfazed by this. "You are too cocky to remain calm in this situation," Yugito replied. Naruto turned to face the blonde woman and said, "I don't need to be cocky, when I know I am stronger than you, Matabi, B, and Gia, Ki." The 2 retreated after hearing this statement. "Be rhymed, how do you know the name of the tailed beasts we contain?" According to Naruto, ask them. After a few seconds of silence, B and Yugito both exclaimed, "What?" A said, "What is it you two?" To the further surprise of the Junin, Samui, Karui, Mabui, and Raikage, Naruto declared, "They have just been informed that I am the Jincha, Riki of the 9-tailed fox. Now can the people I asked to leave, leave." With a nod, he instructed them to go. After that, everyone left the room. "Okay, so what is this big news you need to inform B and Yugito about?" he inquired. Naruto said, "Okay, first, have you heard of the Akatsuki?" A response was, "Yeah, they are a group of S-rank missing nin." "Yes, but that's not all, they're collecting the Biju," Naruto replied. "What?" inquired Yugito. Both Yugito and B recoiled in agony when Naruto stated, "They're after the Biju so they can bring them together to create the 10 tails." A glanced at the pair. "What wrong? 8. Oh is going whack." "Oh," B inquired. According to Yugito, same. "Anyway, that is what they're planning, so I came to warn you too and the Raikage so he could protect you. Now I have information for only the Jincha, Riki," Naruto replied. "Wait, I said that all the information had to be said in front of me," I replied. The Jincha, Riki felt as though he was pulling them, but Naruto retorted, "Actually this is too sensitive for anyone who is not a Jincha, Riki or someone they can trust, and seeing as how I don't trust you I won't tell you. If B and Yugito want to tell you then that is their choice." The mental world Yugito, B, and Naruto awoke somewhere other than the Raikage's office. It seemed to go on forever, and the floor was orange. However, the 3 were not on the ground. Naruto was on Kurama's head, Yugito was on Matabi's head, and B was on Gia, Ki's head. Yugito questioned, "Okay, so why are we in the mental world?" "Yeah, Mr. 9, what makes everything not so fine?" B responded. Naruto continued his explanation of the ether by saying, "Okay, so this all goes back to the Shinju, so don't interrupt. The four people who heard this explanation experienced extreme panic, shock, and realization for Matabi and Gyaki. So you're telling us that the 10 tails is only a part of something worse and the only known beings to stop them are long dead? Yugito inquired. The response from Naruto was, yeah, pretty much. So what's the plan, to stop the shit hitting the fan? B inquired. We have to keep an eye out for the 0 tails and if it is spotted destroy it, Kurama stated. Gyaki asked his brother, how can we do that when we can't sense it? Matabi remarked, Gyaki is right Kurama. I gained the memories and ability from being in the presence of the Gedo statue and the 0 tails. So seems as we are 9 parts of a whole I can transfer them to you, Kurama said with his 2 fists raised. Matabi and Gyaki bumped into Kurama by raising their hands and paws to his fist. The memories and the ability returned to the two when Kurama challenged them with a small portion of his chakra. The ability will only work if the 0 tails is within a few miles from you, Kurama cautioned. Okay, seems as all that is sorted we can go. Once we leave this plane you two can tell it if you want, but wait till Hinata and I go. We will be leaving immediately as I have a bad feeling about the Jincha, Riki of Cha-mei, Naruto replied. All 3 blacked out, and B and Yugito nodded. The office of Raikage Euro, Yugito, B, and Naruto regained consciousness after just 1 second. As he made his way back to Hinata, Naruto remarked, okay, as I have finished my business here, me and Hinata will be renting a room at a hotel and leave in the morning. As they left, Naruto waved, see ya later, Yugito and B. Looked at the pair. He said, okay, what the hell is going on? The Cloud Hotel by Lightning. Outside the hotel, Naruto and Hinata were standing. Naruto looked at Hina. Hyman said, this seems like a good place to stay, what do you think? Hinata remarked, as long as I can cuddle to you, it is fine. After a brief chuckle, Naruto and Hinata entered. At the reception, they were greeted by a woman with blue hair and dark skin. With a pleasant tone, she said, good evening, welcome to Lightning's Cloud Hotel. My name is Aim. How can I help? Hinata replied, yes, we would like a double room for the night. Aim took a key and gave it to the couple, saying, of course. You are in room 23. Just go up the stairs to the 2nd floor and down the corridor on your right. It was Naruto who said, thank you. Naruto and Hinata did as they were instructed. They located their room and opened the door to a decently sized space with a bathroom and a double bed. Each of them showered and changed before going to bed. Hinata embraced Naruto as they both climbed into the bed. Hinata sighed, good night, my ranger. As they both went to sleep, Naruto kissed the top of her head and said, good night, my Haim. The Cloud Hotel by Lightning. The bed that Naruto and Hinata had rented the previous evening was where they were sleeping. Naruto was embracing her with his head on hers, and Hinata was embracing him with her head in his chest. That's how they remained until Hinata began to move. Sleeping in the same bed as Naruto made her feel the warm, familiar feeling she had grown accustomed to. She sighed contentedly and buried herself deeper in her fiancé copyright's warm embrace. With her eyes closed, Naruto remarked, however much I love this, we have to get up and get to Takigakure, Hina, Haim. When Hinata didn't hear back, she sighed and stood up. I know, but can't we stay like this for a bit longer? Fine, let's go. Following their showers and preparations, they both checked out of the hotel and went to grab a bite to eat. The Kumo gate. Waiting at the gate were Naruto and Hinata. A few minutes later, B and Yugito approached the two. We got your call, now drop the cannonball, B replied. Okay. I'll get right to the point. Could you show me your right wrists? Replied Naruto. Despite their perplexed looks, B and Yugito obeyed and showed Naruto their wrists. After activating his Kitsugan, Naruto seized their wrists. He exclaimed, communication seal. It appeared as though nothing had happened to everyone but Naruto until a few seconds later, when he took his hands off of them and placed a seal on their wrists. If you apply chakra to this and talk into it, the others who have this in the system will hear it in their head. B and Yugito gazed curiously at the seal. Then Yugito thought of a question. Who is on out system? At the moment only me. You and B. I will be adding another, which will be the Jincha, Riki of Cha-mei when we find them, he stated. So if we see the Akatsuki, we'll talk momentarily, B sang. Naruto questioned, I've been wondering, does he actually talk? As Yugito rubbed her forehead, he said, I wish. Hey yo, don't diss the rap, now you two have to get across the map. B was rapping. Hinata and Naruto merely chuckled. Hinata replied, yeah, we have to go Naru.kun. Naruto pivoted. Then he turned to the Kumo Jincha, Riki, and said, yeah, you're right. Naruto concluded, Just use the seal if you ever need me or Cha-mei. See ya. After that, Hinata and Naruto both left for Takigakure, the waterfall land. After a few days of travel, Naruto and Hinata entered the land of waterfalls after passing through the land of frost, the land of hot water, the land of fire side of the border, and finally the land of waterfalls. Since they had entered the land of waterfalls, Kurama had been tracking Cha-mei's tailed beast signature, but something had been bothering him. As it was being led away from the Takigakure, Cha-mei's signature had been erratic for the past day. Naruto, we need to hurry, I think something is happening to Cha-mei's Jincha, Riki. What do you mean? The signature is fluctuating and has been for the last day and is being led away from Takigakure. We need to do something. Okay, so what is Cha-mei's distance? 20 miles north, east. Naruto turned to Hinata, who was following him, and said, okay. He said, we are 20 miles out. Okay Naru-kun. 20 miles to the northeast a group of 6 people were strolling through the forest. 5 of them had the same appearance. They were all dressed in black, a gray flak jacket, metal arm guards and gloves, ninja sandals, 4 ninja pouches on their back waists, and a black cloak. They were also all wearing blank masks with the Taki symbol on the forehead. The 6th member was unique. She was a tan-skinned kunoichi of comparable age to Naruto and Hinata, with short, spiky, mint green hair that matched her orange eyes. She wore an orange clip in her hair, fishnet shorts with a short white apron skirt over them, long white armlets, and a short sleeveless white midriff shirt with fishnet armor underneath made up her ninja attire. On her back, she also held a cylindrical object wrapped in red. In addition, she was crying, had a seal on her forehead, her mouth gagged, and her hand in front of her in metal shackles that keep it apart. With 2 behind, 1 in front, and 1 on each side, the teenager occupied the center of the group. The front man called to the team, saying, we will arrive at the meeting location in an hour. We will take a break here and inspect our inventory because the individuals we are meeting with are unreliable. The person to the girl's right asked, who are we meeting anyway? The council only told us to restrain it and bring it to the meeting place. The leader answered, all I know is that we are meeting with members of the Akatsuki. The group paused and took a break after that, not realizing that 2 people were watching them. Hinata and Naruto questioned, can you see them Hina, Haim? Yes, there are 6 in total. 5 of them have Anbu level chakra while the 6th has a chakra level between Yugito, Chan and B.San. She is surrounded by the other 5 and is shackled and gagged. Hinata replied, deactivated her by Kugen. Kurama remarked, so Cha-mei has a female Jincha, Riki. It appears that way, Naruto said. Okay, so we have to take them out then get her out of there. Yeah, but why isn't she taking them out on her own? She has a chakra suppression seal on. Okay, so what's the plan Naru-kun? Naruto simply grinned in response and turned back to face the group. I'll get them, you get her. With the team A-Euro, they were still sleeping when they heard a rustling sound in the forest. The 5 of them braced themselves for a brawl until they realized who it was. 2 individuals emerged from the foliage, the first of whom was smaller than his partner and had purple eyes and medium-length silver hair that was slicked back. He had only pants underneath his Akatsuki cloak and was not wearing a shirt. Along with an amulet, he wore a Yugakure forehead protector around his neck that had a slash through the symbol. He was wearing dark green nail polish as well. He had a big red, bladed scythe in his hand. The second, taller one was dressed in a black mask and white hood, revealing only his eyes with their red sclera, green irises, and lack of pupils. He was wearing Takigakure's forehead protector and Akatsuki cloak, which had been slashed through. He had brown nail polish on too. The 2 were identified as Akatsuki members by the 5, but they also understood the second for another reason. The leader said, Kakuzu. The smaller man said, well, it seems like they recognized you, fuckface. As he gazed at the girl, the now named Kakuzu said, shut up Hidan. So is she the Nanabi Jincha, Riki? The leader remarked, yes, but the fall falls deep in the valley. Hidan remarked, good to fucking know. The leader began weaving hand signals as soon as Hidan said that. When the ground on either side of the Akatsuki members rose and formed 2 hands, he yelled, Earth style. Earth clap. These hands quickly close. When Hidan and Kakuzu noticed this, they leapt back to avoid the hands. As his voice changed from Kakuzu's to Naruto's, he began to transform alongside Hidan, and 2 Narutos took their place. Well, then I guess the jig is up, Kakuzu said. The leader yelled, who are you? Naruto Uzumaki. Senju, I'm here for the girl. Well, tough shit cause you're not getting anywhere near it. Then, all 5 of them weaving hand signals, they ran at Naruto together. Earth style. Earth dragon. Wind style. Wind dragon. Fire style. Fire dragon. Water style. Water dragon. Lightning style. Lightning dragon. When an elemental dragon emerged from each team's mouth, they all yelled simultaneously. When Naruto saw that they were pursuing him, he used hand signals and dispelled the clone beside him. Earth style. Worm travel, he exclaimed, beginning to blend into the earth. There was a tremendous explosion when all of the dragons struck where Naruto was standing. After the smoke cleared, Naruto was nowhere to be seen a euro, just a crater. Hinata was not seen by the team because they were too busy concentrating on Naruto and the jutsu. She made a few hand gestures. She channeled lightning chakra to her feet and whispered, lightning style, fast feet. I got the impression that she ran out, grabbed the girl, and fled back into the forest using her ability to move more quickly. After 2 minutes of using fast feet, Hinata had managed to get a good distance away from the girl's abductors. In a tiny clearing, she paused and set the girl down. The girl shuffled away, her eyes filled with fear, as soon as she did. When Hinata noticed this, she gave the girl a worried look. She lifted her arms in a gesture of peace and said, "It's okay. My name is Hinata Hyuga. I'm not here to hurt you, I'm here to help." After the girl became a little more relaxed, Hinata approached her and removed the gag. "Please don't hurt me, I'm not demon." Hinata calmly remarked, I know, you hold a biju inside you." "Why?" "Yes, Cha-mei, the 7 tails. So you're the one we are looking for. As I said, I'm Hinata Hyuga and the boy who was fight the 5 nin was my fiancé copyrightee Naruto Uzumaki. Senju. He is like you. He is the Jinsha, Riki of Kurama, the 9 tails." Hinata clarifies. The girl's eyes widened when she heard Hinata's final explanation. He is a Jinsha, Riki too. "Yes, we were coming to warn you and to Kagekure about the Akatsuki, but I see you already know and they betrayed you." "Yeah, the village hate me for whom I contain. The only one who likes me is Shibuki who taught me to make friends, but when I tried the village rejected me and hurt me. They eventually had enough of me and the council decided to give me to Akatsuki, under Shibuki's nose." Hinata held out her hand and said, Hey, never give up in trying to make friends. You have one in me." The girl took a moment to consider whether or not to accept the hand. Cha-mei, a blue giant bug with 6 of its 7 tails resembling green insect wings and a real 7th tail that grows from the end of its abdomen, said, "Take it, she is genuine. She is kind and she is the fiancé copyrightee of my brother's Jinchuriki, she can be trusted. The wings are orange, but the stem of the tail is green. It appears to have an orange glow emanating from inside a helmet. Like skull that covers its eyes, along with 6 legs a euro. 3 on each side a euro. It also features spike protrusions on its shoulders and a row of slits on each shoulder. Except for the extreme ends, which are green, the legs are likewise covered by the blue armor. Its mouth is full of sharp teeth, and it has 2 pincers with 3 parts on its face. It has a large, 2-sectioned horned protrusion on its back behind its head." In the end, Cha-mei's remarks solidified Shibuki's teaching, and she accepted and shook Hinata's hand. Fu smiled slightly and said, "My name is Fu." Hinata simply returned the smile and answered, "Nice to meet you, Fu, now let's get those shackles off." Thus, when Fu and Hinata exchanged hands, Hinata gestured with her hand. She flattened her hand, which glowed red, and said, "Fire style. Hands heat." After that, she cut the shackle lock, melted it, and released Fu's hand. Fu rubbed her wrists and said, "Thank you. No problem, now we will just wait for Naruto-kun." Okay. Taki Nin and Naruto 2 minutes prior when Naruto sensed Hinata and Fu's chakra signatures departing the area, he grinned. He created 4 more clones while still under the influence of worm travel. They all positioned themselves behind and beneath each nin, and they all simultaneously launched themselves out of the ground and into the air. Each clone used chakra to create a katana, and they were successful in dispelling the leader and decapitating every nin except for him. The leader rolled out of the katana's range because he reacted faster than his men. After completing his roll, he turned to face the scene. Only Naruto remained after his men were killed. "You bastard, you killed my men and for what? That demon bitch that isn't even a human. You killed 4 loyal and good men for a weapon," he yelled. Naruto glared. "What did you call her?" "Her? Huh. That isn't a her all that isn't it, a weapon." Naruto simply transformed the chakra form from a katana to a bow and pointed it at the nin without responding. Naruto fired as an arrow formed in the drawn back bow. He sealed it quickly. He yelled, "Shadow Arrow Jutsu." as the arrow grew tenfold. When the nin realized this, they made hand signals. He pushed his hands to the ground and yelled, "Earth style! Earth wall!" A wall of earth materialized in front of him. The arrow struck the wall but failed to penetrate and vanished. Naruto ran toward the wall after forming a Rasengan in each hand upon seeing it. He yelled, "Twin Rasengan!" as he collided with the wall, destroying it and setting off an explosion. The nin watched in horror as the wall was demolished. He had to make this matter because he was running low on chakra and had no other option. He made hand signals. As he yelled, "Earth style! Earth collection!" The earth from the demolished wall began to gather around Naruto and enclose him in a sphere. As he passed the earth collection, the tacky nin remarked, "Ha, I did it, he will suffocate it there. The blonde brat is gone now to take it to the Akatsuki and finally be rid of it." He heard something behind him just as he was ready to go into the foliage to fetch Fu. When he turned around, the sight made him go pale. The surrounding branches were destroying the earth collection. When the nin saw this, he decided it would be best to run, but he was unable to do so. He noticed the roots growing around his feet when he looked down, which caused him to stop moving. When he looked back, he saw his last sight. An arrow headed directly for him and lodged in his skull. With his arm lowered and his bow dissipating, Naruto stood before the now demolished pile. After that, Naruto approached the body, looked him over, and discovered a scroll. When he opened it, he saw. The Takigakure Council has ordered this. The Jinchuriki of the Nanabi is the weapon that you and your group are supposed to obtain. After obtaining it, bind, gag, and deal its chakra before escorting it to these coordinates. 2 individuals wearing black cloaks with red clouds will greet you. The phrase, "The fall falls deep in the valley," will help you identify with it, and "the clouds soar high in the sky" is their response. Give it to them and take the 20 million ryo if they can properly identify themselves. The Takigakure Council signed it. The scroll's contents infuriated Naruto so much that he rolled it back up and placed it in a pocket of his cloak. He then collected the nin's bodies and burned them using a fire-style jutsu, but he kept the masks as proof and sealed them in a storage seal. After completing all of this, he left behind Fu and Hinata. Fu and Hinata, after waiting for approximately 5 minutes, Hinata and Fu heard a voice coming their way. Before they heard his voice, they both prepared for battle. Naruto sarcastically questioned, "What if I take out 5 nin and catch up to you and you are about to attack me?" Hinata ran, dropped her defenses, and gave her fiancé copyright a hug. Fu also let her guard down after witnessing the exchange. He turned to Fu after Hinata and Naruto had finished their embrace. "So you are the Jinchuriki of Cha-mei?" "Yes, and you of Kurama." Naruto began by explaining the ether, saying, "Yep, that's me. We're here to warn you of things. You already know half the story with the Akatsuki, but there is more." By the end, both Cha-mei and Fu were in shock, and that's the full story. "So we are in trouble?" "Maybe, I don't know yet. All I do know at the moment is we are going to Takigakure to talk about your treatment and helping you." Naruto replied with a grin. "Really, you can help? Of course, what are brothers for?" When Fu heard this, he rushed to embrace Naruto, and the two parted ways after a minute. "Okay, let's go and get this all sorted." Hinata merely grinned, but Fu nodded with a smile and a tear in her eye. Naruto, Hinata, and the recently rescued Fu took off after the two agreed. The entrance to the waterfall. When they finally came to a halt at a massive waterfall with a thick forest above it, Fu had been leading the way to Taki. Fu informed the other two, "This is the entrance to Taki." Fu merely laughed as the two appeared somewhat perplexed. "The waterfall is the entrance, watch." Fu started weaving hand signals. Hidden waterfall style. Falls part. The water started to split in half in reaction to the jutsu, exposing a secret cavern. Fu then guided the two others through the darkness, into the cave, and into the plunge pool. Takigakure, Naruto and Hinata had a great time visiting Takigakure. After emerging from the cave exit, which was perched on a cliff overlooking the entire area, they were able to see the enormous, glittering lake with a tree in the middle. This tree was not your typical tree, though, as it was at least a mile high and provided protection for the village and lake. Every building in the village, which was situated on the shore between the entrance and the lake, had a red roof and was dark gray in color. Hinata exclaimed, "Wow!" Looking down, Fu said, "Yeah, it's deceptive." Naruto put a hand on her shoulder and said, "It'll be okay, Fu." Fu turned to face him and saw his comforting smile. "Thanks. It's okay. Now can you take us to the village leader?" "Sure." Then Fu flew off, followed by Hinata and Naruto. The village leader's home. The three approached a hilltop wooden house with the waterfall's kanji on the front. Naruto inquired, "So your village leader lives here?" Fu responded, "Yeah, Shibuki lives here. As Naruto passed Fu and Hinata, he said, "Right." Fu and Hinata followed the blonde after exchanging worried and perplexed glances. When Naruto entered the house, he was greeted by a room with a few guards who wore similar outfits to the nin from before and a chair at the back of the room. The man in the chair had his hair in a lower ponytail, was dressed in a turquoise cardigan, a light yellow kimono jacket, and light gray pants. He had a red scarf around his neck. Shibuki was this man. Naruto entered the room and approached Shibuki. The guards were pursuing him as he advanced, but Naruto slammed his hand into the ground and yelled, "Summoning jutsu," before he was enveloped in a cloud of smoke. There was a growl, and the guards halted. When the cloud cleared and Naruto found himself standing next to a male, 7-foot tall, silver fox with 7 tails waving in the air, they retreated. "Tell you guards to get back because I want to have a word with you," Naruto said. Hinata yelled, "Naru-kun," as she and Fu rushed in. Shibuki gave the order when he saw Fu. "Stand down." The guard obeyed the order. Naruto gave the fox a pat on the head. "It's okay, Ashi." He became calmer upon hearing his summoner's instruction. Shibuki inquired, "Okay then, what did you want to talk about?" Naruto threw the masks and the scroll he had taken from the Taki Nin to Shibuki, saying, "I want to talk about this." Shibuki picked up the scroll and read it, looking perplexed. He grew increasingly enraged as he read more. After completing the scroll, he raised his head and cast a pitying glance into Fu's eyes. He inquired, "How long has this been going on, Fu?" "Since I became a Jinchuriki. Why didn't you come to me?" "Because it is the whole village and you can't change their mind or how they feel." Naruto said, "I have a proposition for you, Shibuki." "What would that be?" "An alliance between our two villages. We will help you with trade and mission requests, but, if she wants to, Fu comes with me and lives in Konoha. She will be protected by the Uzumaki Senju clan." Naruto told Shibuki and Fu to their dismay. What?" inquired Fu. With the same smile he had earlier, Naruto turned his head back to her. "You can come to Konoha. There will be no one to harm you there." Shibuki questioned, "You can guarantee this?" "Yes, the Godem Hokage is my grandmother." Hinata interrupted, saying, "Also she will have the Hyuga clan to help." Fu was taken aback by the kindness of 2 strangers she had just met. "These are true friends, larva. They will help you if you need it. This is love and kindness," she was told. Fu dabbed at a tear in her eye. "Will I be able to come back and see Shibuki?" she was asking. "Of course, you will be informed first about missions that occur here and you can visit anytime," said Naruto. Fu asked, "Can I Shibuki?" Shibuki smiled and said, "Of course you can. I just want you to be safe." Fu cried as he ran up to Shibuki and gave him a hug. After a minute, she paused, turned to Naruto, and dried her eyes. "Thank you. Thank you. Thank you," she said, "I accept." Naruto merely grinned. Naruto remarked, "It'll be an honor, Imouto." Then Naruto turned to Shibuki. "I want you to call a meeting of the council." He said, "Oh, I'm going to." Shibuki told the guards to leave, saying, "Go and call the council and don't say anything about this to any of them. If they find out you will be arrested." With a nod, Fu left for her apartment. "Fu, get your stuff together, we will be leaving straight after the council meeting." Then he returns to Shibuki. "Okay, so here's how it's going to go." Naruto grinned. An hour later, in the Taki council room 3 long tables were arranged in a large room, 2 of which were parallel to one another. A few people were seated at the first 2 tables, while the third table was empty. Talking among themselves, the council was primarily attempting to determine their purpose. Shibuki entered a few minutes later and took a seat at the vacant table. The room fell silent as soon as he took a seat. As the doors opened and the 2 entered, Shibuki said, "Thank you for coming. I have 2 important guests joining us today, Naruto Uzumaki Senju, head of the Uzumaki Senju clan, and Hinata Hyuga, heir to the Hyuga clan and Naruto's fiancé copyrightee." Naruto and Hinata bowed and Naruto said, "Thank you, Shibuki." Shibuki stated, "Okay, so we are here today to talk about Fu." The council member was disgusted to hear this. One participant questioned, "And what would it be doing now?" Naruto got up in response to this. "We would like to relocate Fu to Konoha," he responded. "Why would Konoha want another weapon? They have the 9 tails. Plus she isn't here anymore." The council got word that it had been captured by the Akatsuki. Another council member responded. Naruto inquired, "And how did you know that?" The same member stated, "We, the council, sent 5 nin after them to retrieve it." When Naruto heard this, he glanced at Shibuki and nodded slightly. Shibuki then got up, took out the scroll and the 5 masks, and signaled the guard at the door, who opened it and let Fu in. The council began to appear upset. That's funny, as Naruto and Hinata were on their way here and saw Fu being bound, gagged and sealed by 5 tacky nin. One got to his feet, looking indignant, trying to save face. This is an outrage. I hope these 5 have been arrested. Calmly, Naruto stated, no they haven't, I killed them. Good, they deserved it for what they did to Fu. He pointed to the scroll Shibuki was holding and said, but when I searched the leader I found that scroll. Could you read it, Shibuki? Of course. This is of order of the Council of Takigakure. You and your team are to acquire the weapon known as the Jinchuriki of the Nanabi. Once acquired, bound, gag and deal its chakra and escort it to these coordinates. These are the coordinates. You will be met by 2 people in black cloaks with red clouds. You will identify yourself with the phrase, "The fall falls deep in the valley." They will reply with, "And the clouds soar high in the sky." If they correctly identify themselves, give them it and take the money, in the amount of 20 million ryo. Signed by the Council of Takigakure. Shibuki continued. One council member stood and scowled at Naruto as a result of this. How dare you forge a letter that would frame us of such a thing? He yelled. What? Snarled Naruto. You know what I said. How dare you? Remember that weapon you said Konoha had. Yes, the Jinchuriki of the 9 tails weapon. Well, I'll have you know he is a person, not a weapon. Along with Fu, she is a human, not a weapon. How would you know? The head of clan, because I am that weapon you call us. The council went pale when they heard this. What? That's right. I'm the Jinchuriki of the 9 tails, so I'll be taking Fu to Konoha with me as she is in danger in her own village. No, we are not letting Konoha gain the 7 tails. She has need to protect the hero's water. Naruto added, I'm sorry, let me get this straight. You try to sell her off to the Akatsuki, then when I want to take her to a safe place where she won't be beat, you say you want her. Don't make me laugh. This caused the council to fall silent so they could argue. I have already talked to Shibuki about it and he agreed. This meet was only a meeting to inform you and to rat out the ones who would betray a fellow member of the village. And that seems all of you, so from this day forward the council will only be me and 2 advisors of my choosing, and you all will be arrested for the crime of low treason. Shibuki told everyone in the room. Treason? Exclaimed the council. Shibuki responded, gesturing for the nin present to arrest and take the council to prison. Yes, a member of the shinobi force of Taki is important to the village and needed, so if they are beaten and sold, so you will be sentenced to life imprisonment. After leaving the council, Shibuki turned to Fu. He said, Fu, I will miss you. Fu simply approached him and gave him a hug. I will miss you too. I will write every week. Shibuki remarked, good. Now go and live your new life. Fu nodded as they parted. After leaving the room and building, the 3 arrived at the village's entrance. Do you have everything you want, Fu? Fu showed the 2 the scroll and said, yeah, it's all in this storage scroll. Naruto said, okay. Then let's go. He and the girls said this as they fled the cave's darkness and Fu's life of suffering. The Konoha gate from Taki to Konoha, Naruto and the girls had been traveling for roughly 3 days. The Eternal Gate guards were waiting at the gate when they reached it. After logging in, they left for Tsunade's office. The office of Tsunade. Naruto turned to Fu and inquired as the 3 arrived at Tsunade's office door. So Fu, have you made your decision? A flashback: the boundary between the land of waterfalls and the land of fire. A campfire surrounded the 3 of them. Naruto examined the item that Fu was carrying on her back. Fu, what is in that thing you are carrying? After giving Naruto a quick glance, Fu removed the item from her back. She said, this? And Naruto nodded. This is my hive. I collect bugs and integrate them into my hive. They help in battle. Hinata remarked, wow, that makes me think of Shino. Shino? Inquired Fu. Naruto clarified, Shino Aburame and Hinata were 2 members of Team 8 in Konoha. Did you say Aburame? Yeah, why? They are my heroes. They live with bugs in their bodies and are in perfect sync with them. They have some bugs I would love to integrate into my hive. Could you introduce me? Yeah, of course. Wow, thank you. There was silence for a few minutes before Naruto had an idea. Fu, why don't you join the Aburame clan? What? Join the Aburame clan? Yeah, you have more in common with them than my clan. Don't get me wrong, you will still be my sister and my protection, but I think you will be better off in the Aburame clan. I'll give you till we get home to decide, Naruto replied. This made Fu start to consider his options. Final flashback. Fu said, hesitantly and somewhat afraid of Naruto's response, if I can, I want to join the Aburame clan. Naruto merely grinned. Okay, just you may need a peace offering for them. Fu gave a nod. I have one. Naruto and the girl entered the office and Naruto said, good, now let's go in. Oba. Chan, we're back and brought someone with us. Tsunade noticed Fu when she looked up. Hey Naru.kun, who is this? This is Fu. She is the Jinchuriki of the Seven Tails. Tsunade looked at Fu with concern and pity as a result of this. Why is she here? She was beaten and nearly sold to the Akatsuki by the Council of Taki. Tsunade received a horrified and even more sympathetic look in response. So Shibuki and I came to an agreement that we would start an alliance with them and Fu could live here to be safe. Naruto clarified. Tsunade's head was shocked. So you came to a decision that is mine to make? Yep. You're lucky you're my grandson, yep. So is she becoming a member of the Uzumaki, Senju? Actually, if we can, she wants to be part of the Aburame clan. Why? Seven Tails is a bug and she has a hive in that container on her back, so I think she could learn more from them than me. I will help her with her tailed beast and she can take my name. Fu stared at Naruto in disbelief at this. You mean I can have the Uzumaki, Senju name? Of course, once you sign your name just put Fu Uzumaki, Senju. Fu merely gave a nod. So I will go and talk to Shibi now. Hinata, can you help Fu with the documents? He inquired. Yeah, was her response. He said, Fu, have you got the offering? Fu gave Naruto a scroll and a bug and said, yeah, here. This scroll explains the bug. With a nod, Naruto walked out of the office. Tsunade remarked, he is a real handful. Hinata responded, yeah, but we wouldn't change him for the world. Tsunade merely gave a nod. The Aburame compound. Naruto reached the Aburame clan's compound. He entered and rapped on the door of the main house. Shino replied. Hello Naruto. Hey Shino, can I talk to your dad? Sure, come in. After entering, Naruto trailed Shino to the dining area. Shino's mother, Shiva, and father, Shibi, were present. Shino sat beside them, and Naruto bowed and took a seat across from them. Shibi said, what can we do for you Uzumaki, Sama? I'm here to ask if a person I know may join you clan. Who would this person be and why? The three people across from him arched their brows in response to his statement. Her name is Fu Uzumaki. Senju. She is an ex. Taki Nin and Jinchuriki of the Seven Tails. Yes, the Great Bug. I would like her to join you clan as she has a hive, similar to you own, and I think you clan can help her more than mine. This offer is acceptable, we would love to have her join our clan. As he gave Shibi the scroll and bug, Naruto remarked, good, but here is an offering. Shibi read, then scrolled, this is the Mika bug. It is very rare and powerful, and she has over 600 in her hive. I just want to tell you this. She is like a sister to me and is under my protect, so if you use her for her abilities and that's it and show her no kindness, you will have to deal with my clan, warned Naruto. Shibi turned to face Shino and said, of course Uzumaki. Sama. Shino go with Naruto to get Fu and show her around the village and get to know her. Shino simply nodded before leaving with Naruto. Outside the tower of Hokage a Euro. After signing all the paperwork, Hinata and Fu had just left Tsunade's office. She is now a Chunin of Konoha. Naruto and Shino arrived as they were leaving the Hokage tower. Fu blushed slightly as she glanced at Shino. Shino experienced the same thing upon seeing Fu. Naruto and Hinata noticed this and gave each other a small smile. Fu, this is Shino Aburame, heir of the Aburame clan. You have been accepted to the clan and he is here to show you around, Naruto stated. She held out her hand to him and said, hello, I'm Fu. Shin returned the gesture, saying, nice to meet you, Fu. When Hinata caught Naruto by the sleeve and yanked him away, she said, okay, we'll leave you to it. Those two like each other. Naruto replied, yeah, kinda reminds me of you and me. With her head resting on Naruto's shoulder, Hinata answered, yeah. 10 days later. 10 days have passed since Hinata joined the Aburame clan and Naruto and Fu returned to Konoha. Shino and Fu had been spending a lot of time together, visiting each other's hives, getting to know one another, and searching for new insects. During these 10 days, Naruto had been practicing a few things, giving Hinata weapons and a summoning contract. He and Hinata had also gone on a few dates and shared a number of intimate evenings. Using a towel to wipe the perspiration from his brow, Naruto was making his way back into the compound from the garden after concluding his training for the day at dusk. He started to recall the moment he handed the weapons and summon contract to Hinata. A flashback a week ago, Uzumaki, Senju Garden. Standing in the center of the compound garden were Naruto and Hinata. Hinata questioned, Why are we here, Naru-kun? Naruto picked up the enormous scroll beside him and said, I have something for you. The scroll had a white stripe in the center and was indigo, about half the length of Hinata. Then he laid it on the floor and unrolled it. The markings of a summoning contract were inside. Hinata gazed in wonder and surprise at the scroll. Is this a summoning contract? Yeah, it is the summoning contract for the Summon Lions, but Hinata, look at who signed this contract. The final summoner of the Lions of the Pride Plains, Hinata's mother, Hisami Hyuga, left her speechless as she read the names. That's my mom's name. Yeah, the Lions were a special summons only given to certain Hyugas. So how did you get this? You know the Uzumaki were the world's best seal masters. Hinata grinned. Well, the Uzumaki got the contracts for every summon animals in the world in case their contract is destroyed or lost, like this one, in the compound library. So are you going to sign it? After nodding and biting her index finger, Hinata wrote her name beneath her mother's name and blood spurted from the wound. She glanced up at Naruto after signing it. Okay, now what? As he rolled up the summoning scroll, leaned it against the compound wall, and moved a short distance away from Hinata, Naruto said, okay, now just channel chakra to your hand and slam it into the ground and shout, summoning jutsu, watch. After nodding, Hinata turned on her Byakugan and said, Hinata, activate your Byakugan. Chakra was directed towards Naruto's hand, which he then slammed to the ground. Summoning jutsu. He vanished in a puff of smoke, followed by Naruto standing beside Ashi. See, now you go. Hinata gave a resolute nod. She slammed her hand into the ground after beginning to channel chakra into it. Summoning jutsu. Naruto and Ashi watched in awe as Hinata vanished in yet another puff of smoke, revealing who she had called forth. After the smoke cleared, Hinata was standing next to a small, male lion cub that was pale blue and had the beginnings of a mane. He couldn't have been taller than 2 feet. The lion cub appeared scared and bewildered as he looked around, not knowing anything about the area. He noticed Hinata, then heard a faint growl and turned to see Naruto standing beside Ashi. The lion cub jumped behind Hinata's legs for cover because it was scared of Ashi. Where am I? Where are my mommy and daddy? The lion cub asked. Hinata knelt down to the lion cub after noticing his terrified expression. It's okay. My name is Hinata Hyuga, what's yours? The lion cub became a little more relaxed upon hearing the name Hyuga. His father told him the name. My name is Sabaru. Well, hello Sabaru. I am the reason you are here, I summoned you. So you are the lion summoner now? Hinata smiled and said, yep. So you will want to talk to my mommy and daddy. Who are they? My daddy is Kingu, the alpha lion of the pride, and my mammy is Carrie, the alpha lioness of the pride. Would you be able to tell them I will summon them? As he vanished in a puff of smoke, Sabaru said, yeah, okay. Give me 5 minutes and summon them. Hinata faced Naruto once more. How did I do? You summoned the son of Boss Summon. That's better than I did with the toads. Really? Yeah, I kept summoning tadpoles. Hinata and Ashi started laughing at this. They halted after roughly 5 minutes. Naruto approached her from behind and put his hand on hers, saying, Hinata, put as much chakra as you can into your hand to summon the boss, but you won't be able to summon them both, so I'll help. Naruto followed Hinata's hand as it slammed into the ground. Summoning jutsu, they all yelled together. 2 lions were seated in front of the couple after a massive puff of smoke dispersed and covered them. A white male lion, approximately 6 feet 9 inches, with a massive mane, and a pale blue lioness, approximately 6 feet 3 inches. Ashi caught the two's attention as they looked around. The male lion approached Ashi with a slight bow in his head. He said, hello Ashi, long time no see. Yes, it has, Kingu. What's it been? 10 years? 11. Oh yeah, that's right. Dear, we aren't here to catch up with Ashi, we're here to talk with our new summoner, said the lioness. Kingu looked down at Hinata and walked back up to Carrie, saying, of course Carrie. So you are our new summoner. Yes Kingu. Sama. Oh, respectful, I like her. Carrie remarked, yes, but she looked very familiar. Yes, now that you mention it she does. Hinata told them, that might be because my mother was Hisami Hyuga. When the lion and lioness examined Hinata closely, they noticed the similarity. How did you get our contract? The one your mother had was destroyed on a mission, Carrie inquired. In Naruto's words, that would be me. And how did you come to acquire it? Kingu growled a little during his statement. I am Naruto Uzumaki. Senju, Fianka copyright to Hinata Hyuga. The two knew right away why Uzumaki had the contract when they heard his name. Kingu remarked, so the Uzumaki clan lives on. Sorry about the growl, but as you know, summon contracts to summon animals are very important and sacred. Of course, of course. Then Kingu and Kari faced Hinata once more. Okay, we accept you as the summoner and as Hisami's daughter. You can pass this contract on to your children if you wish, also to any siblings you have. Hinata gave this a nod. She bowed and said, thank you Kingu. Sama and Kari, Sama. Kari and Kingu both bowed their heads. Then Kari looked over at Naruto. Do you have the lion gauntlets? Yes. As the lion and lioness vanished in a puff of smoke, Kari said, thank you. As Ashi put it, I'm leaving as well Naruto. To which Naruto replied, okay thanks Ashi. Then Ashi vanished. Then Naruto reached into his cloak and took out another scroll. This one was a scaled down version of the summon contract for the lions. After that, Naruto unfolded the scroll to reveal a storage seal. When Naruto opened the seal, 2 purple, chakra, plated metal gauntlet gloves with leather plating emerged. There were 3 holes between the knuckles in the knuckles section. After picking them up, Naruto gave them to Hinata. They fit Hinata perfectly when she put them on. When Hinata saw the holes in the knuckles, she became perplexed and began to admire the gauntlet glove maker. She held Naruto in high regard. What are these for? Channeling chakra into the gloves. After following his instructions, Hinata was astounded. A lion's head appeared on each hand as chakra began to pour out of the holes and cover the gauntlet gloves. Naruto then produced another scroll and said, these are the lion gauntlets. Once you channel chakra into them, they take the form of a lion head and increase the destructive power of your punches. This is the lion's head fist. It's an addition to you gentle fist your mom created. After halting the chakra flow and causing the lion heads to disappear, Hinata approached Naruto and accepted the scroll. She looked through the katas after opening the scroll. Rolling the scroll back up, Hinata said, Hinata, take off the gauntlet gloves. The gauntlets were drawn in when Naruto activated his Kitsugan and put his hand on the underside of her wrist. He then applied a storage seal to both of her wrists. These seals will have the gauntlets. Once you activate them, the gauntlets will appear straight on your hand. Standing on her toes, Hinata leaned in to give Naruto a cheek kiss and said, thank you, Naru-kun. It's no problem. How about we put the summoning scroll back in the library and go out for ramen and see where the night takes us? Naruto said in her ear. Hinata could only nod and giggle. Final flashback. Naruto had just finished mentally reliving the memory after exiting the shower. A hawk landed on his room's windowsill as he was putting on his pants. Naruto understood the bird's purpose as soon as he saw it. When he raised his arm in front of him and whistled, the hawk flew to it, and Naruto noticed a note on its leg. The hawk vanished in a puff of smoke as he removed the note from the leg. After unfolding the note, Naruto read the following. The snake was outwitted by the bird. In the end, the fox caught the bird. He rolled the note back up and placed it in his pocket after reading it. After leaving the room, he picked up his cloak and put it on before entering the compound. After exiting through the front gate, he leapt to the roof and flew to the Hokage Tower. The office of Tsunade was going over the documents her clones had completed during the day. When someone knocked on the door, she was on the last bit. With a serious expression on her face, she sighed and said, come in. Her grandson entered through the open door. Ah, Naru-kun, what can I do for you? He asked, ignoring the serious look on his face. Can you call in Oto-san and Sakura? Okay. Anbu. 2 Anbu showed up. The Anbu nodded and vanished, saying, get me Jiraiya and Sakura. I want them here in 5 minutes. Jiraiya leapt through the open window after a few minutes. What's up Suna? Heim. Dunno, our grandson just asked for you and Sakura. With that, Jiraiya looked at his grandson. What's up Naruto? Not a word till Sakura gets here. I don't want to repeat myself. Jiraiya huffed, fine. A knock on the door came a minute later, and Tsunade yelled, come in. Sakura entered as the door opened in response. Sakura questioned, you wanted me Hokage, sensei? Tsunade looked at her grandson and remarked, not me Naruto. Okay brat, what's this about? Naruto felt the Anbu depart as he exclaimed, Anbu, leave. Then, without a word, Naruto simply put the hawk's note on Tsunade's desk. After reading the note, the other 3 became perplexed. Jiraiya made the decision to pose the query they were considering. This is what we are here for. What is it? The 3 understood Naruto's statement, that is from my spy in Oto. Yeah, Sasuke has finished training and escaped Oto. This means we can get our revenge and Sakura you get Sasuke back. Sakura leapt and gave Naruto a hug. Really? Yeah, we are leaving soon so go and get ready and meet me at the gate in 30 minutes. Sakura never ran so quickly in her life that the area she was in was only left with an afterimage. Then Naruto looked at Jiraiya and Tsunade. We will be going to Otto after I get back with Sasuke. We'll be back by tomorrow. I'll contact HQ and get the Kuroku to meet us at the Valley of the End. Jiraiya and Tsunade nodded as Naruto walked away. Tsunade turned to Jiraiya after Naruto left, as she whispered, finally. Jiraiya gave her a hug and nodded, yeah, finally. After 30 minutes, Konoha Gate Sakura and Naruto reached the gate simultaneously. Sakura gave Naruto a determined glance. She asked if she was ready to finally get Team 7 back. Yeah, 1 second. Naruto whistled a particular melody, and a mirage appeared in front of him and a figure wearing a cloak that resembled Naruto's. The ranger said, yes, Naruto. Sama. I need you to tell the Kuroku to meet me at the Valley of the End tomorrow. Naruto replied. The ranger bowed and walked away, saying, of course. Then Naruto faced Sakura once more. Sakura nodded, saying, let's go. The pair flew northward through the forest. A few hours later, the dark room. There were 4 silhouettes in this cylindrical, dark room, varying in size and position. One was leaning against the wall, the other was performing pull-ups, and 2 were seated at a table drinking. They were carrying on with their activities when the room's door opened and a gray-haired old man with a walking stick emerged from his hood. The person leaning against the wall said, what's up, old man? Your leader has contacted, he wants you at the Valley of the End by tomorrow. The pull-up performer, who had stopped and was clenching their knuckles with excitement, exclaimed, finally some action. One of the 2 people seated said, we better get going, you know how he gets. The other 3 nodded, put on masks, and left the room. As he left the room, the old man asked, why do I feel like something is going to be destroyed soon? Meanwhile, the Valley of the End. When Naruto and Sakura reached the Valley of the End, they were standing atop the head of Hashirama Senju, Naruto's great-grandfather. They were gazing toward the top of Madara Uchiha's head, where a silhouette was standing, on the opposite side of the valley. Sakura was about to dash to the opposite side to check if it was Sasuke when she noticed the silhouette, but Naruto grabbed her arm instead. 1 sec, was all Naruto mouthed when she turned to face him. Sakura let Naruto do his thing and relaxed. After stopping his whistling, Naruto waited until he heard the tune he needed to hear. Summoning Jutsu was yelled by Naruto as he slammed his hand into the ground, and he simultaneously heard the same cry coming from across the valley. 2 enormous animals were in the smoke in 2 enormous puffs. While Sakura and Naruto were on Hashirama's head, a massive, 30-foot tall, violet fox with 8 tail waves behind it was perched atop her head. You called Naruto? Yeah, sorry Raida. No fighting this time. You summoned the boss vixen for nothing? Sorry, the next time I summon you Kurama will be here. The fox nodded and blushed a little at this. A massive black and white hawk was standing on Madara's head as the smoke cleared. You call Sasuke? Yeah Kuchibashi, sorry, it's to prove who I am. The hawk then turned to face Raida across the valley and said, it's fine. The vixen boss, quite a powerful summoner that boy is. Yeah, he is powerful. Raida and Kuchibashi vanished after speaking with their respective summoners. Then Sasuke leapt over the valley and found himself in front of Sakura and Naruto. Sasuke is dressed similarly to canon. Naruto and Sasuke exchanged a sly smile as their eyes locked. Naruto remarked, long time no see, Teme. After saying, yeah, about 4 years, Dobi. Sasuke turned to face Sakura. Hey Sakura. Sakura blushed and stammered, Hey Sasuke.kun. Naruto, can I talk to Sakura in private for a minute? Asked Sasuke. Nodding, aware of what it was about, I made my way to the tree line. Sakura caught Sasuke's attention again. Sakura, I know you have feelings for me and I have some for you. Sakura was ecstatic to hear this and was ready to leap into Sasuke's arms, but he held out his hand in front of him. But I have a lot on my plate at the moment, so I can't have a relationship with you yet, but as soon as this whole incident is over with Orochimaru and Itachi we can have a relationship. Sakura was a little depressed by this, but she realized and came to terms with the fact that she would have to wait a little while longer to have Sasuke as her own. Okay. Sasuke.kun. I will wait. Sakura's cheek was kissed by Sasuke, who said, thank you Sakura. Subsequently, he gestured with his hand to Naruto, who noticed and approached again. Okay, so you ready to get back to Konoha? He inquired. Yeah, let's go. Naruto placed his hand in the center of the 3 and declared, Great Team 7 is back in the game. When the other 2 saw this gesture, they did the same and put their hands over Naruto's. Yeah. After exchanging smiles, the trio headed back to Konoha. Next day, Tsunade's office. Tsunade and Jiraiya were seated across from Team 7, or the Neo Senin as they called it, in the early hours of the morning. Sasuke had recently written about his training with Orochimaru and Otogakure's defenses. Tsunade looked through her missions and said, "Okay Sasuke, since Naruto vouched for you, I will let you join the Konoha forces, but you will have to go on a mission with Sakura to see your skills." They located one. Tsunade gave Sakura the mission scroll and they departed, saying, "Here, this one should do." She looked over at Naruto. "We ready to go now?" Smiling, Naruto said, "Yeah, let's go." To complete the paperwork for her, Tsunade created 2 shadow clones. After that, Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Naruto set out to eliminate the worst enemy in their family.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.